It's Friday night. You're getting ready for the weekend. You're wondering where do we go from here after SmackDown? Survivor Series is next week. And by the way, AEW Full Gear tomorrow. Well, we're going to talk about it here with our resident expert here in the world of professional wrestling. He even dabbled in it for a very brief period. He's also the host here of the Hockey Fan Chat, which you can hear now on our brand new website, sportswireradio.org. He is none other than Mr. Randy Dillon. And Randy, long time no speak, but good to be with you here on an eve of yet another important wrestling weekend.
I'm doing great, Tom. Good to be back after a week off. Definitely a very important wrestling weekend. The announcements Tony Khan's been throwing out. Someone's going, a big signing's going to happen, debut tomorrow at Full Gear. Is it Mercedes Mons, aka Sasha Banks? The rumor's been thrown out. Is it Ronda Rousey? Is Will Ospreay going to sign? Is MJF going to announce the resigning?
Well, that's some interesting names there. I know one name, Randy, that it actually can't be is Dolph Ziggler because Dolph Ziggler's no compete is till next month. So it can't be Dolph Ziggler. So if it was going to be Dolph Ziggler, maybe that'll be at the last AEW show of the year. But, you mentioned it here, obviously, to announce your return here about maybe 20 or so minutes ago. You mentioned Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey, we've seen now in the independents a little bit. I mean, Mercedes Moné, we've technically seen on AEW TV almost in a way like of wrestlers of yesteryear that would appear from WWF before they would go into WCW. But I mean, do you think it's Ronda Rousey? I mean, Ronda Rousey would be a huge name and would certainly be an interesting one. I mean, what do you say on that?
Ronda Rousey going to AEW makes sense, not only for her, but for the company. Listen, I know she left a bitter taste in a lot of people's mouths, but definitely not my mouth. I was always a big fan of her making the jump to W. I liked her work. I know she put on some not great match, but she was a big, important step for that women's division. And I think she'll be a big, important step in AEW if she goes there. But if she goes there, this is not your regular star who's transitioning from WWE to AEW. This is a mega star. She has the presence to bring a lot of fans, attention from media to her. And from what I saw this past, I think last week, someone she got dropped in her head on an independent show.
Yep.
That's gonna
Yeah.
happen a lot more in AEW. And she's not someone to likely lift. You stiff her, she will break your arm. So
Well, ask Stephanie McMahon about that. But it's interesting that you say that. I agree with you. Ronda Rousey's career certainly exceeds most people in the wrestling world because of what she did in the mixed martial arts world, obviously in UFC. But we've been down this road here a lot, Randy. Randy, we've been talking here on Sportswire for 2.5 years. You and I, we do this dance, and a lot of the dance over the years has been about who's coming in from AEW. But I almost go back to every other name we've spoke about here in the past, whether it's Adam Copeland recently and, Ric Flair we spoke about maybe even 2 or 3 weeks ago and every other name that's come in here to AEW. Is it really going to bring them any extra new heads, new viewers? Because I feel like we've been down this road before. And the name that obviously we've talked about the most, I think, throughout our time here on SportsWire, CM Punk. And that I guess did bring them eyeballs. Maybe Ronda Rousey even exceeds CM Punk. You could make that argument, but what's to say it's Ronda Rousey tomorrow? And why would this be different versus anybody else that's coming?
the only reason I think Ronda Rousey is a little bit different because one, you actually have someone you can put the woman division around and make her the face. They've tried with Britt Breaker. They've definitely tried to push her. It has not worked. They had someone in the light of Jade Cargill and they never pulled the plug. Tony Storm, I don't know what they're waiting for. She's someone right now who's doing some of her best work.
Timeless Tony Storm.
Just put the dang title on her. Saraya, they tried, and it was a very short-lived project. Ruby Soho, the list goes on and on. Even their current AEW Women Champion, they're trying with Chris Steiner as the TBS champion. They just seem never get it right. But the one thing I worry about Ronda is she has a big personality. She
Yes.
wants the charge here. Listen, WWE, they pushed her to the moon, and eventually, listen, everything in any sports, time passed, you move on, no hard feeling, it's a business. AEW, I don't know if they can do that with her because they're not really run of the business. And I feel like, listen, there are some people probably in that locker room like Anna Jay, like Ty Conte, who's been there for so long.
The original
Julia Hart,
Dr. Britt Baker. Have to throw her in there.
yeah, Athena, like there are women in that room that do they really want a Ronda Rousey to come in and pretty much just make this division about her? And I think this is going to be the question: is what's going to happen? But I don't know if it's going to be Ronda Rousey. A lot of the rumors are Will Ospreay is going to make a decision to come, but his contract's not up till the later. I think not for a while, so it doesn't really make sense for him to
And we
sign.
saw him in Impact, and I feel like he's still kind of weighing his options. I mean, for Will Ospreay, I mean, I understand the point, but I feel like with Will Ospreay, Randy, he might still be exploring his options. No?
WWE is knocking on that door, and I think for him, they really want him there, but he does not want to leave the UK. But I think they said they'll make him the face of NXT Europe or that international brand. So we'll see there. And then listen, the last obvious answer is the resigning of MJF. We know the bidding war of 2024 is ahead of us. He has a big match this upcoming. He has a big match tomorrow, and this really could be an indication: is he going to resign or not?
Well, I mean, I think those are some important points. I mean, any other names? I mean, Ron throws out there Matt Riddle, but I feel like Matt. No disrespect to Matt Riddle, but I don't think he's on the same par as Ronda
got that
Rousey.
90 days as well. He just got fired shortly released after Dolph Ziggler, so he's gonna be waiting as well. So definitely it's interesting. And then Mercedes Moné, she said she's not coming back to 2024 in the ring.
Now that would be a name I think that would certainly be a megastar. Has certainly cut her own path in Japan. Has kind of certainly waited out the lay of the land. I mean, that would be a name. But I still go back to this again, Randy. You know, you mentioned Saraya. We talked about Adam Copeland. We talked about Ric Flair. I mean, CM Punk we've brought up. Maybe he was the one that sort of had success. We mentioned Jeff Hardy in the past. I mean, I can go Christian. I mean, we can go up and down the roster of people that have come in from other places. And I still say, is the end going to still roughly be kind of the same thing here in AEW? They come in, they get the big recognition. Bryan Danielson, another name. Bryan Danielson came in here. Samoa Joe, Adam Cole. I mean, they all kind of get lost in the shuffle. Jon Moxley. I mean, Jon Moxley, everybody seems to have an opinion on Jon Moxley, but the point is that any of it really moved the needle?
Nope. You look at Tony Khan's track record on this, other than really CM Punk, none of these guys have really moved the needle in such a big way. And that's why Ronda might be really kind of the only one different, but there's no control in that locker room. And these are big personnel, other than kind of Will Ospreay and MJF, who's been in AEW locker room. Mercedes Moné, Ronda Rousey, these are people that want it to be about them. They don't want to sit in the background. We saw with Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks in her time in WWE. She was always second fiddle to Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss. She doesn't want to
Becky
be
Lynch. Yes,
exactly. I think she's really, if she's gonna come here, she wants to be the face, and she wants to be the top. She wants to be about her. But again, you have all these other women.
Right, and we mentioned that. Listen, I mean, the homegrown talent, right? Anna Jay, you mentioned. You know, Julia Hart's out there. You've got Dr. Britt Baker. You got Ruby Soho. You got Saray. I mean, it's a long list of women's wrestlers. Toni Storm, timeless Toni Storm. But I don't know if they're going to all of a sudden just jump the ladder where you've got a deep roster. I think that's the problem that AEW has, that they bring in. Sure, they collect all former WWE employees, but after a few weeks, you almost kind of, they get not lost in the shuffle, but it becomes murky almost.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, the track record for this is horrible. It's pretty much anyone who's joined AEW other than really CM Punk, they get a little bit of a push and they kind of get lost in the shuffle unless they kind of know what they're doing. You look at the guys who really got the push. Daniel Bryanson. You kind of look at guys like Jon Moxley. You look at Christian. These guys are veterans who know how to work the system.
Yeah, I think Moxley fits AEW. I agree with you on that. Christian is somebody who I think his respect in the locker room, his kind of chameleon abilities. Bryan Danielson fits that smart, wrestling craved AEW fan that's not so much into what WWE sports entertainment. And obviously, we're leaving Chris Jericho kind of to the side because he's basically been an AEW original.
And then
That's a very unique, one that I would leave out to the side just because he's been with AEW since day one.
exactly. Then you look at other guys, Tom. You look at guys like Claudio. You look at Miro. Look at Andrade. Like these guys who come from W as well, but they've got these.
Miro had like a great first 5 months, and then after that, it's kind of like
Malachi Black. Like look at him. Cody
yeah, I
pushed
mean, I
his
know
head to the moon.
they've had the tag titles, but it's been kind of like mixed at best. I mean, Jeff Hardy certainly had his personal problems. And what else is new with that? But I mean, those are the points here. Now, let me get to some comments here because people certainly want to talk, and I want to let people say hello. Our buddy Ron says, "Good to see you again, Tom." Yes, we were on before with our buddy Mr. Ace Reed, who had some technical difficulties, but we'll bring Ace back on the 9th of December because by then we'll have Backyard Wrestling Down Under, a few different shows, including There Goes the Neighborhood. We'll see if Ace takes home their championship. He'll get a chance to talk about it. And we answered about Matt Riddle. And Ron, I don't know if you're following, but Ronda's been wrestling in the independents. Her wrestling career is not over. So to answer your question, she could certainly jump to AEW because Tony Khan's got paper. He's got money, and money doesn't grow on trees. And she's been wrestling in the independents, and she might like that schedule. She might like the ability to kind of have that flexibility to only show up once a week, not really do many house shows, be able to be with her family, kind of do her own, kind of bubble almost and be absorbed in that. Maybe that's something she craves. A lot of these wrestlers have gone to AEW for the same reason. So those are some things that we'll certainly figure out. And obviously you mentioned MJF. Obviously that's a whole nother cluster, but anything else on AEW Full Gear tomorrow you're watching before I ask you some thoughts on SmackDown tonight?
Big thing I'm going to be watching. Two things I'm going to be watching. The Young Bucks versus Omega and Jericho. This is just with a very strange build because they had this whole thing going with the Don Callis family. They had that match on Dynamite, which I really thought this match should have happened tomorrow with all the build. It's kind of like you're building something up and you think, okay.
You gave it away on free TV. You're never supposed to do that. Yes,
exactly. Save it. And with guys like Cody Katisho, with Powerhouse Mark Hobbs,
Powerhouse Hobbs, yep.
Hobbs. They built up some great guys with Don Callis, and even Sammy Guevara wasn't even in the match. And they made that turn. It was just like, why are we putting this on free television where these young talent deserve the opportunity? But we'll see what happens with the Young Bucks and Omega and Jericho. Seems like they're going to have a program or the Young Bucks going to turn. I'm really interested. I'm really excited for the Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page match. Listen, Swerve Strickland, he was one of those guys that got pushed in that shuffle as well, but he's been able to kind of find his way out.
Yeah, he's really become actually a big, like us, almost a big live streamer podcaster. He's got a big following now, Swerve Strickland,
Exactly. And then like the big thing that MJF and Jay White, because either MJF is gonna win and Jay White's gonna lose in the shuffle, or MJF's gonna lose, and then I think it's more of an indication he's not signed under a contract. And who is the devil? I love how people are saying it's CM Punk. It's not CM Punk. It's either, my guess is Adam Cole or Kyle O'Reilly or Roderick Strong at this point.
Yeah, I think Adam Cole would certainly make sense. I think Adam Cole makes sense for a number of reasons in that title picture. I mean, CM Punk, I mean, boy, if it, here we go again. If it's CM Punk, I mean, boy, I guess we've all been duped, and maybe we should all, never talk about wrestling, never make any predictions, because if it is CM Punk, after everything we've heard in that locker room, and if they were to go back and say it's CM Punk, I mean, Randy, you know what? I give up if it's really CM Punk.
My thinking is this: they must have paid him a lot to get pretty much embarrassed by Tony Khan to say
that's what I'm
saying. Bucks to do the laugh.
Basically, they threw him out.
Yeah,
and then to bring him back, I don't think I've ever heard that before. So if it's CM Punk, I guess you can never say never, but I'm inclined to agree with you. I think Kyle O'Reilly makes sense. Adam Cole makes sense. Obviously, Matt Riddle is out. Dolph Ziggler, we also mentioned for the same reasons. I mean, so I don't know if it's anybody else that would be a big enough name.
Maybe Ric
Storyline
Flair,
purpose.
for all we know, this big debut.
You know what? I mean, listen, Ric Flair is Ric Flair. I mean, I mean, Ric Flair is going to probably want to wrestle in
He
AEW.
is gonna wrestle, dear God.
Listen, I mean, we spoke about this with TBK. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, you can't put anything past anybody here. And, I wanted to ask you real quick before I get to SmackDown. Now, I was curious on what you think in terms of the landscape of wrestling is. And TBK didn't really have much of an answer on it, but I'm curious on your perspective. I know you definitely heard about it. What do you think about now NXT going on to network TV and the CW? And how does this change the wrestling landscape? Because obviously we know that Raw still hasn't had an agreement to sign with a network or stay with USA. AEW's got their own situation. We know that the NWA was supposed to be allegedly be on CW, and that's kind of been pushed to the discussion. You've got Impact out there, and MLW for a brief moment was on Reels. I mean, so what do you think about NXT going to CW, and how does that change the wrestling landscape in terms of television?
It is huge that changed the wrestling landscape in television because you go back 2 years ago, NXT 2.0, what an embarrassment that was. And the NXT they built now reminds me a little bit of the black and gold brand, but it's kind of its
Yes.
own division now. This really kind of sets WWE thing. WWE is still the number one wrestling company in the world where they have all three brands running on full gear. And for NXT to get this contract, and the funny thing I was reading, CW is kind of a part of Warner Brothers Media,
Yep.
a string. So it's
And
funny how
CW's actually been, I don't know if you know this, but they've been kind of rebranding themselves almost as like a sports channel because for a long time, CW really didn't have any sports programming nationally. Now they're doing the ACC, they're doing college football, college basketball with that. They have Inside the NFL here in America. And now that they've added NXT, it's almost kind of a rebranding for kind of a network that really has never been in the world of sports programming. So I find that very fascinating.
exactly. What I remember the CW is for is back in the day where people used to go watch the TV show known as One Tree Hill. That's what I kind of
Yes,
remember.
it was One Tree Hill. It was Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Exactly.
It
That's
was
what I remember.
90210. Yeah, those were the days. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, but now the CW, listen, this is a big move for WWE. It kind of solidified they are still the number one company, but I think they realize there's competition out there. They want to stay on top. They got to their product got to improve, and their product has improved dramatically even after the whole merger. The rumors Vince was going to come back, and technically he's
Yeah,
not going
I
to
tell
come
you
back.
what, I've enjoyed NXT. I mean, NXT, I always have enjoyed NXT in some form or another, but I really feel like NXT has stepped up in the last maybe 9 or 10 months. I mean, I think NXT has done a really good job in programming, and I think that even SmackDown I've enjoyed a lot more than in Raw, certainly. So I could certainly see your point about WWE stepping up its programming and it's improving, and obviously we'll see about Raw. What happens with Raw? We know SmackDown's going to USA, but Raw is kind of an open-ended question. We know that also NBC and Peacock will have added programming, but Raw is kind of still out there, and they have less than about 11 months until they have to go to a new home. So we'll certainly see about that here. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your man behind Sportswire Radio with my good buddy Randy Dillon. Randy's been with us here on Sportswire for a long time, and he's also the host of the Hockey Fan Chat with the hockey season certainly getting into full swing. We're almost kind of at that quarter mark of the season where you start thinking about, okay, playoff position, who's in, who's out, and kind of get a sense of that. As we're now American Thanksgiving next week, and certainly we'll get into more of the NHL in the coming weeks on Sportswire. If you want to follow Randy, he's on Instagram and Twitter at Randy Dillon, DHILLON. Also, check us out on our brand new website, sportswireradio.org. If you haven't got a chance to see it, definitely check it out. You can go and watch us anytime by the listen live button or the watch live button, where you can see us on YouTube. Or if you don't want to see all the new lights, you don't want to see our mutton chops or my facial expressions or even Randy's beautiful mugshot, you can always click the listen live button and listen to us anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days. You're in about 15 minutes. The rest of the Sportswire Radio guys will be on here to talk NFL and baseball, you name it. They'll talk about it here. Myself, Justin Gianelli, Chris Bizet, and the returning Brute Force Brothers. All right, so then Randy brings me to SmackDown and Becky Lynch. I was almost thinking, is it going to be Jade Cargill? Is it going to be somebody else? I was even thinking in a twisted way, maybe it'll be Mickie James because of Nick Aldis. And there was obviously the news out there that Mickie James is basically taking an indefinite leave from Impact Wrestling. But alas, it was Becky Lynch. And I have to say, Randy, it was a little strange for me to see Charlotte and Becky Lynch after all the stuff we've seen with them on screen and off screen, that they're together, a part of this War Games lineup. And what do you make of that here, and anything else you might want to add?
Definitely, Tom. I was like you. I thought this would be the ultimate opportunity to bring in Jade Cargill to
Yep.
set the seeds for her and Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania 40.
Yep.
I thought that
I couldn't
perfect
agree with
way.
you more. Could
But
not agree more.
But War Games is a tough match, and definitely I think for a first match, it's a tough spot to be kind of thrown into. I always think with War Games how they've done the last few years since they brought it back, and they've always want to try to get vets in there who kind of know what they're doing. Now Becky being a part of last year, Charlotte wasn't there. Same with who
Shotzi Blackheart.
Shotzi, thank you. Shotzi
You're
wasn't
welcome.
there. And then you look at Damage Control. Okay, Bailey was there last year. Same with EO, but Kyrie wasn't. Asuka was there. So I like what this is a very interesting and could be a dangerous match. So I think you want to kind of play this one safe there. But we'll see what happens down the road. The only thing is, I feel putting Becky in this match is what do you kind of do with her after? Like, where do you kind of throw in the picture? Does she fight Shotzi? I'm not Shotzi, EO, but we know her with Seth on Raw. How is that gonna work? It definitely put her in a weird spot. Is she gonna disappear? Are we not gonna see her again till Rumble? It's a very weird, definitely situation.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, it's weird. There's history there with her, and a number of different people on both sides, but you're almost not sure where it goes from here. It's almost kind of like, is this a shotgun wedding here? And I want to say hello to somebody I haven't seen here before, Zachariah Khan. Everyone has a price. Evil laugh. Yeah, well, that's definitely the case. I can definitely attest to that as a businessman. But okay, so what do you then make of Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare, certainly helping out their LA Knight with this whole situation between Solo and Jimmy Uso there? I mean, what do you make of that here? I mean, are we going to see Cody and LA Knight team up, or what's your thoughts on there?
I'm very confused on this because originally when I thought they were going to announce this board game match, it was going to be Dom, Damian, and Finn teaming up with Jimmy and Solo versus Jay, Cody, LA Knight, and two others. I guess Seth could be one of them. And then obviously the rumors are out there. They're going to be Randy Orton. Is it going to be AJ Styles? Who is it going to be? But and Sami Zayn. But now it's really weird because you kind of threw this wrench in the War Game match because apparently it's supposed to be Judgment Day with JD McDonough, Priest, Finn, and Dom versus Cody, Jay, Seth, and Sammy, and then you add what Drew McIntyre did
We'll get to
last
him next.
week,
Yep.
where he hadn't forgiven the Bloodline, but now the Bloodline working with the Judgment Day. This really throws everything in a wrench. To say, what the heck's going on here?
It's almost like everything's kind of, like I said, like a shotgun wedding. It's almost everything's thrown together, and
Yeah.
nobody knows. And then let's talk about Drew McIntyre, because TBK and I were talking a lot about Drew McIntyre. I heard him on his podcast, the Be More Talkative podcast, but I know he's taking an indefinite leave on Sportswire Radio. We wish TBK all the best, and we certainly hope to hear from him again on Sportswire Radio. But I mean, Drew McIntyre did not win the title at Crown Jewel, but now he's aligned here with the Judgment Day, and we know his situation with. Is this a situation where this is going to jumpstart Drew McIntyre's career? He's going to get himself the world title, or like, where do we go here with this? I think that's a real fascinating move here, that Drew McIntyre finally turns heel for the first time, and I think it's almost about 5 years or so that he's been a heel, and he's aligned with the Judgment Day. And we know again that Damian Priest has the briefcase, and he, like, where do you think this all goes?
Little really confusing because this Drew McIntyre heel turn, TBK was talking about this I think a few weeks ago. They've been building it up so well, and I was even thinking his last heel turn, he was kind of like the big muscle guy who just did the hard work, who got pinned. He's so much more developed, his talking skill, the persona. Yeah, definitely this heel character has so much potential, but now he's teaming up with the Judgment Day. Okay, they're kind of just a side job for the Judgment Day. Is it long term? Like, it's until I think we watch Raw, we don't know what situation is going to happen, or is it more of, listen, I hate the bloodline and you're the enemy of my friend, but again, what happened on Raw, like, it's just such a mess.
Yeah, it's just it's funny we talk about just before. Well, WWE programming is improved, and it's certainly, I think, in a lot of ways, it's become exciting. AEW has their problem, but then we have this whole situation with Drew McIntyre, and you've got this logjam in the world title situation. And Seth's been the champion, but it's certainly not been the same run that Roman Reigns has. And again, nobody could really have that run as that Roman Reigns has had. But you're almost kind of wondering. So I guess I hate to speculate, but does this mean that Drew McIntyre will stay here in WWE, or what bearing does this have?
I would have to think they are getting close for him to stay, because I kind of remember with AJ Styles back in 2018, 19, they didn't know if he was going to resign, and they were he was still a main attraction, but they didn't really know kind of how to play with him. And
Right.
it's very rare where you give someone this big opportunity pushing away if they're close, if they're not supposed to be. So I gotta believe things are moving. I think he's intending to stay. It's just a matter of when is this contract going to get finished.
I like to see him stay, to be honest, because I think we always talk about it here. Drew McIntyre, to me, got a raw deal. I think because of the COVID era, he didn't win the title in front of fans. He didn't get a chance to defend it in front of anybody. And it's really, again, in history, you look back, it's almost kind of like how in Major League Baseball they had the 1994 strike and there was never a World Series champion, and or even in the NHL where we had those two seasons back in 2013 and 1995 where it was an abbreviated season. And it's almost, in a lot of ways, it's not to say to take away from his title run, but it's almost an asterisk in a lot of ways, and he's never quite recovered, I think, from it. So I think I'd like to see him stay. I'd like to see him finish the story. But is there anything else you're watching? Also, we've seen Rey Mysterio is out for a while. We have this kind of thing with the LWO. I guess we're going to see Santos Escobar and Carlito. We see that there. I mean, is there anything else of note that you're watching with WWE between now and the next time we're on the air?
I love Santos Escobar's promo. I he When he first even showed up at the heel with Lafanango, there was something you could tell there, and they were slowly building this up, and I think they did at the right time. Where, listen, he's gonna have a big match with Ray, but upcoming most likely at WrestleMania, because they say 3 months. We're looking at February, March, so definitely I think they give him a great opportunity to say, hey, if you want to build yourself to show you're a main star player, here's your opportunity. On Raw, I'm really looking forward to the Zoe Stark and Rhea Ripley upcoming match at Survivor Series War Game. I think Zoe Stark, since she debuted, has started off with Trish Stratus, kind of her lackey, gone her own direction. The performance she did at Crown Jewel in that five-way, she really stood out there. Now this big opportunity to fight Rhea. She's definitely showing she has a bright future. And then just to turn to next week, NXT. Listen, the feud between, or the story between Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes is
Yep.
just some beautiful work there. I'm really looking forward to see what's going to happen in that, because who is did Carmelo attack Trick? Trick is getting this big push. Is he going to go win deadlock? It is definitely looking very interesting what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think NXT, there's really a couple of different things that I'm watching, and I'm really excited about that. And again, the NXT product, in some ways, I actually enjoy more than Raw. So I really think that those are some great points. And again, you could certainly see some of that. We'll definitely talk about it here next week on the show. And very quickly, I want to, before I get to closing thoughts, and I'll let the guys come on here. I know some of them are going to pop on here in a second, like Justin and the Brute Force and Chris. But the NHL, I mean, I got to ask you real quick, because, the Islanders, to me, look like they're in a world of a lot of trouble. I know Justin's the Devils guy, and the Devils aren't off to a great start either. The Edmonton Oilers have surely been the talk of the league. But the Islanders, I think, if there's anybody right now that could make a coaching change, if there's anybody right now that very well may be about to plummet right now in the season, is the New York Islanders. And I was kind of curious what your thoughts generally on some other things real quick before we move on to closing thoughts.
So just to talk about the Devils, Devils are without Husher and Jack Hughes. Any
Yep.
team losing their top two centers is going to take a blow. I don't care how good the team is. You lose stars like that, it's very hard to recover. But they're hanging on there. I think Neil Villapiano said Jack Hughes is close to returning, and that will be a big boost for the team. And they're still in the race. The Oilers, have they found their groove with Chris Nabla as the coach? They made the coaches change last week, won 3 in a row now, but they got a lot of work to do. I'm happy for my Capitals. Listen, they're 8-4. Right?
They're
They're
off to a
doing
good start. I tell you what, they're definitely a mild surprise right now this year.
exactly. But for the Islanders, Tom, this team is. We saw it last year. It's a Jekyll and Hyde team where they play some great stretches of hockey, but then they drop. I go back to the game Wednesday against Vancouver. They had a great first period. You couldn't ask better. But the second and third period, they really struggle to find their groove, and they're hoping Sorokin can bail them
Yeah,
out.
but even the Kraken game yesterday, you lose that in a shootout. The Edmonton game, you're going into the third period. The Carolina game to me is where it all started, where you blew I think the Carolina game, you blew a 3-goal
Yeah.
lead,
And the
and you
game
wound.
before that, they blew a lead to Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, so you look at it, you've had a problem the whole season in holding leads. I mean, that's a big problem there. And you have a team that's really aged quickly. I mean, Barzell, there's some fingers being pointed there, and Anders Lee. I mean, Casey Zizekas made some comments talking about how fans basically shouldn't question the team. I mean, that's a team I think that could very well be aging pretty fast and could be heading for the bottom of the standings. It just has that feel right now. I mean, and there's a lot of fingers being pointed.
Yeah, and then I think a lot of fingers at this point are going to be pointed to Lou Lamoriello. Listen, I think
Absolutely.
we talked about this last year. Did Barry Trotz deserve a chance to correct the ship due to everything that happened the year before? It wasn't
I think
good,
the
but
answer was yes. I mean, he was the one that gave you the most success in the franchise's recent history, and you had back-to-back conference finals and had their best regular season in 30 plus years. The first year he was here, and he had a slow start for the season because they played a thousand games on the road and they never recovered. And you
and then
basically,
COVID, they were the kind of I
yeah,
remember
you
talking
never
to
you never gave
Isles
him a
girl Kim. She said
yeah, you never gave him a fair shot, and you didn't really do anything to add with this team. Okay, so you brought Horvat in there, but Horvat's never really adjusted himself into playing with the team. Barzell, there's some issues there. So I mean, you've got a core that's aged pretty quickly, and they all play kind of the same position, and you're lacking some defense at top, and your special teams has been questionable, and you're counting on Sorokin to win these games, but if you can't hold leads and you give up quality chance after quality chance, I mean, you're not going to win in this league. I mean, so ultimately, I mean, you know, I don't know what to say, Randy, at this point. It's
they're in
over.
a tough position because they have guys like Pellick, Sorokin, Barzell, Horvat, all signed to these big long-term 7, 8, 6 year deal. I know Andres Sleeves maybe had 3 years left. I think guys like Pajot, but again, guys like Pajot, I think have 2 years left. Brock Nelson contract coming up. Kyle Palmieri's contract. They have money coming in the book, but they haven't really done anything to really support this team. They've given up prospects here and there for picks, and the team really has no direction. Where they're kind of a fringe playoff team, and that's all they're really going to be
Yeah,
at
I
this.
mean, look, even if they turn the ship together, at the end of the day, this team's not a Stanley Cup winner. And you've had a core that's been together on and off for a decade. They're not getting any younger. You've got a team that doesn't really have any young parts aside from Sorokin and Barzell. Okay, I'll give you Barzell, but the rest of this core, they had a lot of miles on them. Zizekias, Clutterbuck, Martin. You gave a lot of money to guys that play small roles. I mean, and their window is closing or have closed. I mean, Anders Lee, you gave a lot of money to because, again, you didn't want to lose another captain, back-to-back captains, and you don't really have that kind of almost where you're growing a team that you could kind of win with them, and they're not there, unfortunately.
And Tom, here's a big thing. You look at the conferences. The East is a much tougher
It's
conference than the
stacked. I mean,
West.
even teams in the Atlantic. I mean, Buffalo, and Ottawa are supposed to be improved this year. They're at the bottom, and
But
they're
they're
500.
and they're
Yeah.
only I think five to between I think the second wild card and six. I think it's in the last spot in the West East. I think only 5 to 6 points separate
I
the
was gonna
teams.
say the same thing. It's about 2.5 games, give or take,
So
based on the
you have
wins.
no breathing room in the East, where the West you have a little bit breathing room. but definitely tough. And the last team to talk about, listen, the Vancouver Canucks, what a season they're having. Everything clicking with them. And it looked like Elias Pettersson's on his way to win a Hart. Quinn Hughes on his way to win a Norris. And so they're definitely having a great year after many disappointing years out here.
It's definitely been a while for sure with the Vancouver Canucks. We'll see if they can continue. The Tampa Bay Lightning are also off to a start that we kind of spoke about here at the beginning of the season, that this could be the year where they kind of take a step back due to
It all
age.
depends when Vasilevsky returns for them, I think, at this point.
That's an excellent
and how
point
healthy
there.
he's going to be.
Definitely a taste of what you'll see here in the coming weeks on Sportswire. Now that we know that TBK is not going to be with us here for a while, it'll give us more of a chance to talk some hockey with Randy. Randy, I'm going to give you the floor here before I bring the guys on here, and anything else you want to plug, share, or say, please do. Always enjoy it. And I'm still looking forward to our Survivor Series post show next weekend on Sportswire. And the floor is yours, my friend. Good to be with you once again, and take it away.
Thank you, Tom. Definitely looking forward to the Survivor Series post-show. War Games is always fun. Now with that, NXT War Games 2018. So those matches, if you're there, you get to watch live. It is a treat. On a hockey-related note, we are close to getting a guest to join us on the Hockey Fan Chat. I believe it'll be a Vancouver Canuck fan to talk about their surprising start to the season. They have some questions as well, but listen, all things rolling there. You want to hear?
And how about, I forgot to mention, Jaromir Jagr finally gets his day with the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, that was another good point you made.
Long overdue, but I think the question is when he's going to get a day in the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, if anybody that's deserving, it's Jaromir Jagr. He was almost kind of like, for the baseball fans on Sportswire, like the Ricky Henderson of the NHL, because he just kept playing and playing and playing. You're almost like, is he retired? And he wound up again. And to me, it's always a what if with Jagr, though, because if Jagr doesn't take those 5 years that he took off when it came to not playing, and he would have maybe had a few records there. So good points there.
100%. But if you want to hear my opinion, as Tom did, follow me on Twitter at Randy Dillon, Dillon DHILLON, or on my Instagram account to get my thoughts and opinion. Tom, always a pleasure. Great to be back.
Absolutely. Again, you can follow Randy DHILLON on Instagram and Twitter. He'll be back with us next week, plus a lot to talk about in the world of the NHL and the world of professional wrestling. Randy, great stuff. Looking forward to it as always. And thank you for all you do, my friend. And we'll talk with you next week.
Thanks, Tom. Take care.
All right. That was Randy Dillon of the Hockey Fan Chat. He's alive, apparently. That is the brute force Bradley Weiss wearing the vest for us here, probably off the basketball court, and also the host of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals, Mr. Chris Pizzea. Justin Gianelli was with us, and then he's having some Wi-Fi issues, so he'll rejoin us. But fellas, how you doing here tonight?
Doing well, Tom. Doing well. Happy to be back.
I'm surprised you have a voice at this point, Brad.
Yeah, I've been working on that. It's been a long week of tryouts and some difficult decisions, but certainly didn't have to do too much yelling, so that means a lot of kids did well.
All right, well, that's good to know. Obviously, we don't want to be too hard on the kids, and Chris is here with us, and I guess we'll wait for Justin in a second here. But obviously, let's talk about our fantasy football for our picks league here for those that are listening and watching, because we have a real race here when it comes to everybody. We've got our guy, Rob Marasa, kind of like the baseball card guy, right? The guy who picks the almost not quite the Anthony Finkel napkin guy, but certainly he's one of those guys that I think most people would say maybe doesn't have the most NFL knowledge. I'm sure he would beg to differ because he's in first place, but he is in the lead. And in fact, Billy McInerney, our buddy Billy McInerney, had one of the better weeks of the season. He is now tied with some guy from Sportswire Radio. And the brute force, Brad Weiss, you are back over 500, and you are alive 9 games out of first place. So you're kind of where you'd like to be. I'm sure you like to be a little bit better. And then we've got John Gonzalez and Chris kind of almost on the outside looking in here. Still have a chance mathematically, but you got to have some really big weeks the rest of the way. You guys are 14 and 15 games back, and Justin had that 1 week he missed, which definitely hurt him in terms of where we are. But he's 20 games back, but he's certainly playing for 500. Then we've got guys like Patrick Trotty, who should basically forget about him, Carlos Arturo Chavez, Joey Bostrom, who's dropped like a rock, literally, and TBK, who's not going to be with us here for the rest of the season. So it'll be interesting to see if he's actually picked any games. But Brad, I'm curious about you because you are ahead of John Gonzalez, but you are still definitely on the outside looking in here because you are definitely, I know you're on that basketball court. You're thinking about the picks. You're thinking about it. You're saying to yourself, wow, Rob Maraska first place. And, certainly not the guy that a lot of people would have pegged to be in the lead here. Maybe Chris or Billy would have been more of a poetic type of person to think of. But, I mean, how you feeling right now where you are, Brad?
I'm going to use a word that we've used on Sportswire a lot in the past, and the word is purgatory. All right, I kind of feel perturgrious, if that's a word. Okay, because I feel like I'm just stuck in this purgatory area where
you're like the U2 song.
I'm just kind of in the middle of things, and kind of I'm happy that I'm over 500, and I've gotten better over the last few weeks, but it's kind of just been like an average season. It's just kind of been around the 500 line, going up and down. So, I'm not exactly pleased with it, but at the same time, like you said, Tom, we're in striking distance. I have a chance to have a good week.
Listen, a lot of picks to be made, and you're right there. I mean, at the end of the day, look at
and as you accurately said, I'm ahead of John Gonzalez, which is the most important thing. Okay, and ultimately, listen, I'm rooting for Chris because I don't want Chris to get below John Gonzalez. I'm rooting for Justin Gianelli because I want him to get ahead of John Gonzalez so that I can go to John.
Well, he's 5 behind him. He's 5 behind.
He's not out of it with John Gonzalez. So, if he gets past him, at least I could, get on John Gonzalez about how he's behind people who haven't even picked or had a whole week off of picks because Justin missed a week and didn't pick. Yeah. So we had automatic losses. So, listen, I'm having fun with it for sure. I'd like to have a big week to get back into the picture with the big boys right now. Like you said, Rob Maraska, Billy, some guy from Sportswire named Tom. So, I
never heard of him. Never heard of him.
So I definitely want to get back into the race, but I need a big week. But I'm happy with where I am. I just need to do a little better.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously Chris is still alive as well, and Justin wants to point out that he's doing a restart. That's like my guest at the beginning a few hours ago, Mr. Ace Reed of the Wired Up podcast in Australia. Poor guy just never had internet connections, and he says he's climbing. Yeah, Justin's kind of hung in there week by week. He gets 8, he gets 9, he gets 8, he gets 9. That's kind of why he's at least got a shot at 500. I mean, it remains to be seen here. But, I'll do the picks in a little while. But, I want to ask you guys both this question, and I'll get to the Jets for sure. I want to get to the Jets last because I have a lot to say on the Jets because a lot of people have been asking me in the street, asking me about the Jets. So I have thoughts on that. But, what it's with this year, guys, with all these quarterbacks getting injured, the latest one being Joe Burrow. He's out for the year now. And I saw in our Sportswire radio group, our buddy Michael Pallas was going back and forth with a couple of different guys here. But, I'm curious, Chris, and I'll get to Brad in a different take. But, Chris, you and Sharman have talked a lot about the league each week with the Liftoff Jets. I got a chance to listen to a bit of the show earlier today. Enjoy what you guys are doing. I know you guys are doing a new format as well. I heard you guys talk about that as well. But, I mean, what do you make of it this year with so many different quarterbacks, monumental quarterbacks, being out for the season? Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, and now Joe Burrow. I mean, what do you make of all this year?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's been one of those crazy seasons where guys are getting injured. Some big time players, and you could even go not just quarterbacks, but also running backs too, right? Yep. You know what? I don't know. It's just one of those seasons, I guess. And I always think about it, as a Jet fan, this season was kind of set up for us to, number one, take the division and be a true Super Bowl contender because all these teams are getting hurt.
God. Everybody, like listen, Joe Burrow. Everybody this year, everybody's 5-5, 4-5, 5-4.
Yeah. And
this
it
was
stinks
set up this year
because the Jets can't take advantage of it, right? We lost Aaron Rodgers early on, but a lot of teams are dealing with injuries. But you know what? They're still going forward. Cleveland, they lost Deshaun Watson. That
was my next one. I was
hurt earlier in the season, and they were still winning games. The Jets are, doing what they're doing. They can't even score a touchdown, let alone win a game.
I'm gonna definitely have some thoughts on them.
Yeah, I got thoughts too.
I know that. But Brad, I'm curious because obviously you coach, you played, and we'll certainly talk about our Golden Eagles who lost a tough one earlier today. They went off to a very good start. We'll definitely talk about that at the end of the show in our closing thoughts. But what do you make of it this year? I mean, all these big-time quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, of course, here locally, Daniel Jones, have to throw him in there, though Giant fans probably wouldn't mind that at this point, considering their season. but Joe Burrow being the latest one, Kirk Cousins last month. I mean, what do you make of this? I can't think of a year in my life. I know Chris is a little bit older than us, but I can't ever think of a year in my lifetime where the quarterback play A has been this bad, and then B, on top of that, this many quarterbacks getting injured.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a unique year in that sense. And obviously, really unfortunate that we have so many injuries, especially across the league. Obviously, that's part of the sport, that's part of the game. But at the same time, I mean, obviously, the quarterback position holds a lot of weight because it is the most important, position. Everybody's got their jersey. Everybody loves their quarterbacks. So, except for the Jets. But,
did you get your Aaron Rodgers jersey yet?
No. But, to go to Chris's point quickly before I kind of rotate back into the point, it makes it really difficult as a Jet fan because, realistically, Chris, I mean, what happens if Aaron Rodgers actually was able to come back and the Jets were able to actually win a few of these games? You would actually feel like you have some hope because of all these injuries to some of the other teams like Cincinnati, like Cleveland, like these other teams that are, going to be hovering. But
Raiders, Buffalo, who we play this
yeah,
Sunday.
at the same time, though, you're stuck in that same situation because you can't get the job done and you don't have a quarterback to get the job done. So it's tough. And, even have a team like Buffalo who can't get their act together. Like Chris said, the Jets had a great chance of just staying in it and having a chance to maybe get over the top and get into the playoffs and compete, but they're just not doing their job.
The AFC, who's really the most elite team? I guess you'd say Baltimore. I mean, certainly Jacksonville's been good, but they got blown out by San Francisco. Kansas City's been good, but you don't really feel impressed by Kansas City. And then there's people that kind of have a little bit of doubts on Miami. And I'm not going to bring up Brad for you, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, oh, by the way, 6-3. But, Chris, I mean, what do you think about that? I know you and Sharman were talking a lot about the games, and I really got a chance to really sit down and listen to last week's show because I played it like 14 times on Sportzwire. So it means I've listened to it like parts of 14 times. But, what do you make of that, though, in the fact that the Jets, it's kind of like a missed opportunity because if you look at the AFC, there's really one super elite team the whole year in Baltimore. Kansas City, fine. But then even like teams like Miami, people aren't going to be convinced on, or Jacksonville. I mean, what do you make of all that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's frustrating. As a Jet fan, this could have been our year. It's crazy to say that, but this could have been our year if Rodgers doesn't get hurt. But, it is what it is at this point. And will Rodgers come back, at some point in December?
Well, I mean, our buddy Michael Pallas was talking about the fact in his podcast. Well, you can win against Buffalo this week. You beat Miami. If the way things fall into favor, you could be 6-5, tied for first place in 2 weeks, and maybe you could bring him back. I mean,
yeah, if everything falls right, yeah, I think he would come back. But if we lose these next 2 games, forget that. Then I think we're done because this. I was telling Sharman that what we were talking on the show is, listen, these next 2 games are basically the season for the Jets because they got Buffalo and then they got Miami. If they lose both games,
forget about it.
Their shot. Yeah, forget it. And we said it last week, right?
And that's why I felt like, listen, the Raiders game, and
we need at least 10 wins.
Yeah, and I felt like the Raiders game, to me, that was a game that you should have won, honestly. You were in the red zone, 6 times in the red zone and didn't score. I've never seen a team as allergic to the Jets are in the red zone. I mean, that's a game that was handed to you on a silver platter, even getting the ball back, driving down the field. I mean, I was listening to you guys talk about it with Saller in the timeout, but I mean, to me, I almost feel like last week was the must win. Okay, all right, because of the way things worked. Yeah, but okay, the way things worked, okay, Buffalo's a must win. You get a mulligan on it, fine. But, Brad, I mean, what do you make of all that? Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers then, because obviously that's the elephant in the room. And, okay, maybe you win these next 2 games, and he decides he's healthy enough. I suppose he can pull this off. I mean, I'm still skeptical. I was speaking with a good friend of mine that listens to the show in my neighborhood here earlier this morning, and he was skeptical, and he's a football man. I won't say his name, but he's a kind of a respected guy in the local football world here on Staten Island, and he was saying there's no way that Aaron Rodgers could really play. But, I mean, Brad, with an injury like this, do you think that he could really pull this off, and should the Jets do it, let's say, if they win both these games?
Oh, they definitely should do it if they win both games because – listen, like we were talking about, I mean, the opportunity is still there. And I wouldn't even, listen, I know we love TBK, and I think Baltimore.
He's unfortunately, the news is that he's probably not going to be with us here for the rest of the season. He's going into other.
Well, listen, we still love him, and we still,
absolutely,
we still, know that his team is a good team. But at the same time, I don't want to go too far and call them elite. I know they played well last week, but they did lose to the Browns the week before that, and they blew a big lead. So it's not like they are like this superhuman team that we can't beat if we don't have a quarterback. I mean, we have everything else in place, from a defensive side, and that's what's killing fans in Cleveland too, because Cleveland has an elite defense. They were starting to put it together with Watson a little bit, showing a little bit of a sign, and then he goes down. So, the one thing I will say, though, and I want to highlight this with this point, is that, it's really important that you have a good backup quarterback, and you also have to make sure that you have, you have to have an understanding of what you need. And I like to give credit to a team that deserves a lot of credit, and that's the Minnesota Vikings, who was proactive. They did a great job in getting Dobbs and making sure, okay, well, this is a guy who can help us win and still keep us.
The longest winning streak in the league. We were killing them a month ago. We were killing them.
But they got on a winning streak, and
Uncle
then
Rob is a happy man, huh, Brad? Uncle Rob is a very happy man right now.
Yeah, and listen, they could have easily just, okay, Cousins is out. Let's just go back to whoever we have. Instead they were proactive. They got Dobbs, who was doing well this year. He's doing a great job. And, you look at all these different teams, like the Bengals have this guy Browning who stinks. You got,
My first thought was, I think Chris will appreciate that. My first thought was, is he related to former Cincinnati Reds pitcher Tom Browning?
You never know. Might be his son or something.
I mean, they got Browning. The Browns got this rookie Alexander Walker we don't know anything about. We have Zach Wilson, and it goes down it goes down the list. Like there's a lot of
DeVito and the Giants. Chris and I were joking last week. I was
DeVito.
I actually think I know a DeVito in Brooklyn. I actually think I know at least two.
But I mean, if you go down the list, I mean, there's a lot of, and these guys are NFL players, so I'm not going to go as far to call them bums. Okay, but at the same time, they are not good quarterbacks. Like they are backups at best, playing in a tough position. Which again, I know, having been a player and being a coach, having sat the bench for a long time and not getting a chance, and all of a sudden, here's your chance, and here's what you're going to do, and this is what position we're going to put you in. It's not easy, but at the same time, these guys, have played in college. They have had, careers, and they have been quarterbacks at the highest levels at their high schools and other places. So to see the absolute disaster that is the quarterback play in the NFL right now is kind of tragic. Knowing that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like I said, and I'll get to comments in a second. I got a bunch of them from my buddy Skulls and also Ron. Ron is back with us, but I don't ever remember in my lifetime a bad play of the amount of quarterbacks I've seen this year.
There's too many across the league right now, and that's again why I give credit to a team like Minnesota who knew that their backup quarterback was not equipped, to be able to do that. And they went out and they were proactive, and they got somebody who's helping them win right now. So, unfortunately for us as Jets fans, Chris Pizzea was talking about it, months ago about how the Jets, needed to shore up their backup quarterback position.
Chris and Sean, I want to give them credit for a second. You can listen to them here on sportswireradio.org, the brand new website here. But they were talking about it 2 weeks ago on their show, the Liftoff Jets, where you can check us here on the website, is that the Jets did nothing at the deadline. The Jets had an opportunity to do things and didn't do it. I mean, you had a chance if you wanted to bring in a veteran quarterback or to bring somebody out there. Listen, not to say that the Rams did a great job by bringing in Carson Wentz to bring in for veteran experience, but
I don't think that would have been the answer for us.
No, but the point is that you didn't do nothing.
Right. Joshua Dobbs was there.
Exactly.
Joshua Dobbs.
You had a chance to do something. You didn't do it.
And listen, is he going to be able to beat Kansas City in the playoffs when we have to play them if we get there? No, he probably not. But you know what? He'll get us to the playoffs. I guarantee you he would have beat the Raiders. He would have beat who else? The Patriots. He would have beat
Chargers.
The Chargers. He would have beat some of these teams without a doubt.
100%.
He's a decent quarterback. I'm not saying he's a great quarterback. He's not going to, outduel Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. No. But you know what? He'll get us there. He's going to win games.
And and that's the thing. And that's the thing I think that bothers the Jet fan most is that the Jets haven't been to the postseason since 2010. So what do you have to lose by making a move
Yeah.
at the deadline? You got a
It's
defense. You got a
Absolutely.
defense that's one of the best in the league. And the stat to
2
me,
years in a row.
the two stats that's most mind-boggling to me is that you've only scored 145 points this year. Now, I wasn't good at most things in my life, but to score 16 points a game in this league, and on top of that, to not even score more than 2 touchdowns in a
Horrible.
single game this season, that's embarrassing. That is absolutely
Oh,
embarrassing.
it's beyond horrible. And again, we talked about this all of last year. And again, it's kind of like a repeat sequence. And I would even go further to Chris's point, because he's 100% right about how this guy could get you in the playoffs, can win you a playoff game. But to go even further on that, how about just keep the interest of the players in the locker room, the guys who want to stay? Like, okay, well, we made the playoffs. We took a step. The old saying is you got to crawl before you walk, and you got to walk before you run. Okay, making the playoffs for the Jets right now and winning maybe a game would have been at least success without Rodgers, and at least we could have taken a step. Right now, we're depending on him to come back, but at the same time, if we would have had a quality backup that could have given us a chance to at least say, okay, we'll be in the playoffs and we have confidence we could at least get there and maybe win a game, would have been better than the situation we're in right now, which is currently, like you said, Tom, the fact that you couldn't score a touchdown against the Raiders is just
embarrassing. That's an embarrassing performance offensively. And then Salah comes out and says, well, he did a good job.
No, he didn't. He didn't score a touchdown.
Listen, what game did you watch, sir?
Right.
What game did you watch?
I don't know.
It's just, again, this is, if we were talking about Tom Bryce, if we were talking about the high school football field and we were talking about this, it'd be different.
If our buddy John Perez was certainly with us,
yeah, but this is the national, this is the NFL. This is the NFL. The best players are supposed to be playing at this level. And the fact that a team in the NFL cannot score a touchdown for 6 to 7 quarters is absolutely asinine and pathetic. That is something that, again, we can talk about with high school teams, elementary school teams, the flag football team locally. That's things we can talk about. But in the NFL, we're talking about a team that can't score a touchdown. Just straight embarrassing.
It's embarrassing.
Touchdowns now in 9 games. And this goes back to, forget about the trade deadline. In the offseason, they needed to get a legit backup, and they didn't.
And that's what I was referencing, Chris, because you said this. We had a conversation about it. And again, we're look at where we are right now. And again, it's funny that Tom Bryce, a quality backup quarterback, could have done really big things for you this season with what's going on.
And you got to have it in this league. And we'll get to Justin in a second. I'll get to a few comments. But if you think about the amount of quarterbacks that went down this season, like you had to have that other quarterback. It's almost like in the NHL, you carry 3 goaltenders now. You have to carry 3 quarterbacks because something could happen. A guy like Rodgers, who's 39 going on 40 years old, you didn't think that he was going to have a possibility of injury. Sure, nobody thought he was going to basically on the first play, second play of the season was going to have what happened to him, no question about it. But you got to be prepared in this league. You got to be prepared. To me, it's unfortunately one of those things that I think Skulls hits the nail on the head. Our buddy Skulls, the Soul Hunter. The Jets always remind me of Big Daddy. Yeah, that was a funny movie, but that was a while ago. Ron also wants to say the amount of injuries this season is crazy, and most of them are quarterbacks. Yeah, we talked about 5 quarterbacks. It was Cousins, it was Watson, it was Rodgers, it was Burrow yesterday. It's just a long list of quarterbacks. You could probably throw a few other
Anthony
quarterbacks.
Richardson.
There you go. Richardson with the Colts. Good call. Good catch. That's 6 quarterbacks. And you're talking about 6 different quarterbacks this year. And the Falcons are 4-6 though, Ron. They're basically where they always are on Sportswire.
You really want me to talk about them?
They're always where they are. They're probably going to finish. They're going to have another 7-9, 7-10 season. At least the Jets didn't lose 49-17. Yeah, okay, fine, but the Jets.
They have a good defense.
Exactly. So, Justin, before we pick a few games here, we recap where we are in the picks league and such. And, let's talk about it. Well, I'm not going to go through every game, but I'm going to pick certain games just because of the interest of time. But, we were talking about the Jet debacle. It's obviously in the Sportswire radio group. I see you going back and forth with Michael Palace of the Jet Bleeding Up podcast. And he has his own opinions. He certainly almost comes up with things. It looks like it's like out of his ass half the time I listen to his podcast. But, I'll be honest. I love the guy, but some of the ideas he has, it's, certainly Left's to be desired, but that's his opinion. That's why we love all opinions here on Sportswire. But, Justin, chime in. And what do you think here about this Jets season and some of these things we were talking about here?
I mean, as you get to this point with the Buffalo game, I mean, obviously you're at a crossroads right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to have a season? Do you want to go up in flames? Because you look at the rest of the AFC. I mean, you guys touched on all the QB injuries and what that's done for their seasons, these teams' seasons, and it's hard to see the Bengals and Browns really getting much out of the rest of the season.
Right.
The Browns are going to be rolling with Dorian Thompson-Robinson for the rest of the year, it seems like.
Brad, remember that name.
The rookie at
Yeah,
UCLA.
I got it wrong, whatever I said.
Hey, just call him DTR. The kid out of UCLA, he was great under Chip Kelly at UCLA. The Bengals obviously got Jake Browning. But, I mean, the Jets here, they obviously laid a massive egg, right? Losing to the Chargers at home the way they did, losing to the Raiders the way they did, and just not scoring a touchdown. I mean, something's got to change offensively. And I don't know what it is because they're clearly too stubborn to change the quarterback position. And, they right now think their end-all be-all is basically swapping out Michael Carter for Izzy Abanikanda, which I think actually will provide more speed for this offense. But how much of an impact is he really going to make right off the bat? It can't be that much. It does seem like Jeremy Ruckert's going to play a little bit more, and CJ Uzama is going to probably more revert to third string. I would love to see them cut CJ. I mean, because every time the Jets get a big play, he ends up with a holding or an illegal block in the back. So, I mean, and that's the frustrating thing. Every time the Jets get like a big first down play, it always seems like a penalty's calling it back. And,
the drives against the Raiders, there was a couple of moments where
Killer.
the Jets looked like they were going to
They
score.
actually scored a touchdown twice.
Yes.
Yeah, they did. The first time Zach Wilson stepped out of bounds at the 3, and then the second time Hall runs one in, holding. You can't make it up, honestly. But you know what? They continue to have this opportunity. They continue to have this golden opportunity to make noise in the AFC playoff picture. And now they got to go out there Sunday against Buffalo, and they got to step up. They got to continue to play the way they've played against Josh Allen. They've really handled Josh Allen, not just the last couple of years, but throughout the course of his career. The Bills are actually only 6-4. I remember the Jets have been a terrible franchise.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much for the last decade. And this is Josh's 6th season in the league. The Bills are 6-4 in games he has started against the Jets. So it's kind of been more of an even matchup between the Jets and the Bills. And he's only thrown 9 touchdown passes in 10 starts against the Jets. So they got to continue that formula. And I don't know how, but this offense has to find a way to get into the end zone. I need to see not just one, I need to see two touchdowns on Sunday.
No, three. They haven't scored more than 2 in a game this season. I mean, that's just abominable.
They can win by scoring 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I agree, but I mean, 100
because they could beat the Bills. They could beat the Bills like a 17-13. They can win that.
The Bills, listen, as crazy as it sounds, and we will pick a few games here in a second.
The Bills' offense is a mess.
I think the Jets can win this Sunday because I think Buffalo's in a lot of turmoil in their own right. To me, they've got a lot of problems. They certainly, there's fingers being pointed there if you're following their situation.
And I don't think the change to Joe Brady is going to really make that big of an effect. I just don't. What we're seeing with Josh Allen is essentially Brett Favre in his prime. Yeah, Josh Allen can absolutely light up the scoreboard with the best of them. He damn well might throw 3 picks.
Brett Favre was definitely he was a guy that could throw 5 fumble the ball 3 times just randomly. Yeah, that's a very fair comparison. Brett Favre was, and we saw it with the Jets here. He was certainly a gunslinger.
I'm not afraid to let it loose.
No question about that.
I think it'll make it. I think it may not be in the game plan, obviously, because they got to get not back into it, but they got to try to run the ball more. But I think it's going to make the players kind of look in the mirror at themselves and say, whoa, our coach got fired because of us, not because of him, because of us, because we didn't do well out there, because he's only coaching. He's only calling the plays.
Right, but
So
also,
I
too,
think the
also
players
too,
are gonna
if the defense makes a stop, they win that game. And you think
Right.
and you talk about them running the football. How did they score that go-ahead drive? They ran the ball down their throat with James Cook, and then Josh Allen ran the ball in for a touchdown. They
There you
ran
go.
the ball effectively on that final drive, and then between a couple of penalties and
get
some and some
Yeah,
great
I don't
execution
get
by
Buffalo
Denver,
this
they
year.
end up
I
winning.
don't. I don't know what it is, but we're gonna pick some games here in a second. And Ron wants to point out that he just likes hearing Brad trash the Falcons. Well, Brad's been
Good.
doing that since 2020. We've been talking
Here it
about
comes
the Falcons.
again. Get ready.
Well,
Coming
we'll
soon.
actually for your taste, Ron, we will pick a Falcons game. We're gonna pick some games here in a second, so we're actually gonna do that here. We might as well pick some games. So obviously, we know that Baltimore and Cincinnati happened. Baltimore won comfortably. So Brad, let's actually get into it. You haven't been here in a while, and we haven't done this with you. Let's actually pick some games here this week. So let's pick some important games that'll certainly have a lot to be desired on the standing. So let's kind of go to one here for Ron also that I think it's a very fascinating matchup right up the bat. And that's the Green Bay Packers and the Los Angeles Chargers. Another team, Brad, in the Chargers that I don't know what to make of them. There's like 8 teams in the NFL this year. You just never know what you get from them. The Los Angeles Chargers are a prime example of that. Then you got Ron's Green Bay Packers, and the Packers here are 3-point favorites. They are at home here in Lambeau. And, Brad, I know I'm looking at you. You're 9 games back in the standings. You're looking at Rob Maraska, and this guy's kind of hung in there week after week. Everybody says, well, he's going to be out of the lead, and he finds a way because, probably looks at everybody else's picks, and then he picks his own. And, I'm curious, where do you go? Because you are now just within striking distance. So I'm very curious where you pick between our old friend Anastasia Racina and her Chargers and our buddy Ron's Green Bay Packers. Go Pack, go! And who are you going with? Go at this 1:00 matchup here with those Packers, 3-point favorites.
So let me just make it clear. So I thought the Chargers were a 3-point favorite. It's the Packers. I just want to make sure.
Yes, the Chargers are 3-point
Chargers
favorites.
are 3-point
Chargers
favorites.
3-point favorites.
I read that wrong. Yeah,
No
correct.
worries. I want to make sure I don't put that upset alert up there because
You know
it's
what
not,
it is? I have new lighting, and actually, I couldn't see on that. We have brand new
that's
lighting.
all right. But listen, no upset alert needed this early in the show because I'm picking the Chargers by 3 points. You told me that you really didn't know anything about the Chargers. Well, it's okay because I know everything I need to know about the Packers, and that's they stink. That's all I need to know. Ladies and gentlemen, one of my worst fantasy football picks of the year was drafting Christian Watson. He has been nothing but a disgrace. I was just hoping for some production, and just absolutely he's giving me nothing. And again, Jordan Love, the whole experiment with him, obviously moving on from Aaron Rodgers has not gone that well. The team, I know they competed with Pittsburgh last week, but really we know
they actually should have won that game. I was watching the game, Brad, and I was thinking, oh boy, the Packers have the ball at the end. I was actually watching the game, and I'm thinking for whatever reason, they're going to win this game, and Brad's going to message me out of the blue, but the Steelers' defense has just been on another level.
Well, I will say this, though, Tom. The Steelers have made me happy the last 2 weeks because I picked them both weeks. So
we're going to talk about them in a
Steelers
while.
for now. All right, I'll get to them in a second. But anyway, in this case, the Packers have shown me they're not capable of putting up points. And the one thing that I think the Chargers will do is put up points. And to talk about the Chargers, I mean, just another team, Chris, kind of like the Jets that – this is an opportunity for them. I mean, they really should be doing better than what they're doing, and they have an opportunity that if they make the playoffs with all these quarterback injuries, all these issues elsewhere, they should be able to make noise. But obviously, they're the Chargers. They get in their own way. They have a coach that doesn't do his job as well as he should be. And ultimately, they're going to be purgatorian like my picks right now, where they're just not going to be consistent. But in this one, I do think they score enough points, and I think the Packers struggle too, so that's why I'll take them.
Every time I hear you say purgatory, I think of the Simpsons episode where Homer's in purgatory, and I think for whatever reason that's going to be whoever loses this game for sure. But okay, good enough there. And before I get to Chris, I want to say hello to my buddy Mr. Omen Black, because Mr. Black, I know tomorrow when I'm live with Mr. Justin Parsley, he might want to hear what myself and Mr. Parsley, well, more so Mr. Parsley, is going to say. Yes, the Brute has returned to Sportswire, and thank you for the jacket. I actually just bought the jacket. It's a Levi's jacket that I spent a few dollars on, but I can afford that. That's okay. And if Jordan Love throws another pick in the end zone, I'm stomping on his ACL. Boy, sounds like you might be getting ready for tomorrow show with us. Chris, I guess I can't figure out the Chargers. Anastasia Racina's Chargers, and they're a team that has high expectations, but another team that's in this muddy between 4-5, 5-5, 5-4, and they are alive in this AFC. Again, it's a cluster jam, and the Packers have been, after I guess a promising start, have kind of tailed off, and they seem like they're heading for purgatory in their own right, a la 5-12. 6-11, but maybe if you're a Packers fan like Ron, you were in this spot last year and you won 4 games in a row and got yourself to the last game of the season where you controlled your own destiny, and ultimately you came up short. But what do you think here on the Chargers field goal favorites on the road in Green Bay?
Yeah, in Green Bay, I kind of thought about it, and I just wanted to look up at the matchup. They haven't played in a few years. They haven't played since 2019, but all time, Green Bay leads the season, their series 10-2.
Wow.
10-2 against the Chargers.
I didn't know that.
They didn't play much, but.
Well, maybe they played a lot. Maybe when Favre was there, when Green Bay was great, I guess maybe.
Yeah. Sense. But, you know what? The Chargers, like we always say, the Chargers are going to charge it by the end of the game. They find ways to lose instead of finding ways to win. So I think it's going to be one of those field goal games, but I think Green Bay is going to squeak it out. Their defense has been playing well. Jordan Love, can he do enough? I just hope he does enough that Big Ron doesn't destroy his ACL. I'm picking Green Bay in this game. I'll take the 3.
Yeah, I don't know what's with ACLs this year. It just seems like it's everywhere. It's in the wrestling world. It's in the football world. Omen, I know, will know a lot about that in the wrestling world. But, Justin, this is one of those weird matchups because, again, the Chargers have been largely underachieving. We've definitely talked about them a lot over the years on Sportswire, and definitely a coach on the hot seat. I would have to imagine the Chargers, Mr. Staley, is definitely one of those. And you got the Packers, who are certainly starting over, and they're 3-6, and they've been largely underachieving since their early start. You won the first game, but the Falcons game, speaking of that, they blew that game, and that's kind of where the season's kind of sputtered since. But, what do you think here as the Chargers are kind of in a rare way field goal favorites on the road, 1:00 in Green Bay, as Chris made a good point that these teams really haven't played much.
Yeah, I mean, the typical AFC, NFC battle. Listen, I think something changed when the Packers played the Raiders and Jordan Love threw 3 interceptions in that game. They lose to the Raiders 17-13. Ever since then, it really feels like Jordan Love's lost his confidence. Their offense is broken right now, and I haven't really seen too many adjustments from Matt LaFleur that I thought I would. And to me, I kind of start to question him as a head coach. Was he a true product of Aaron Rodgers? I can't deny that right now. Love got off to a nice start this season, the first couple of games. I know they ended up choking that game away to Atlanta in week 2, but Jordan Love had a really solid performance, and then they bounced back and they were 2-1 after 3 weeks. Yeah, but ever since that, it was that week 4 Raider game. It really just turned things around, and ever since then, the Packers have been very turnover prone on offense. Their defense is not all that great. And I think that the Chargers are going to be able to exploit a lot of those mismatches. Whether it's Keenan Allen in the slot, Quentin Johnston in the on the outside. Justin Herbert is finally adjusted to life without Mike Williams, and because of the emergence of Johnston. Obviously Gerald Everett and Donald Parham have been good safety blankets at tight ends, and obviously Austin Eckler, he's fully healthy now, so their offense should be good to go, and I think their defense makes enough plays, and I like Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and I'll pick it because obviously we don't have anybody else here, and I'll go right to the jugular here. I was going to pick the Chargers, but I kind of thought along the lines of Chris. I just don't. Green Bay, 1:00 at home. the Chargers are a team. I know that they've had some success in these spots, ironically, this year. But I just, for whatever reason, call me crazy, I think Green Bay finds a way to win this game. I don't trust the Chargers on the road in Green Bay. I mean, they're never in this type of spot in this weather. I mean, I think Green Bay's played slightly better than their record. So call me crazy, but I think it is going to be a close game. But I kind of think that the Packers find a way and pull it out here. And I want to say actually to somebody here very quickly. And that is Mr. Big Tex of Dominating Breakout Wrestling. And he says here, hello, Tom, just a heads up. This is 1 week somebody can't bash the Falcons since they have an off week this week, but being a Commanders, a.k.a. Redskins fan, what is your take on their game with the Giants? You know, because I have to say Big Tex is one of our usual fans here on Sportswire Radio. He does a great job, by the way, for DBW. In fact, I love DBW. We all love DBW on Sportswire, and I want to make sure everybody follows and supports them on YouTube at Dominating Breakout Wrestling. Let's actually go right for the juggler. You know what? Actually, just because you're here with us, Big Tex, and I have a feeling that before the year is over, I'm going to be speaking with you on Sportswire Radio. I'm going to go to the brute force Bradley Weiss here and actually talk about this game between the Washington Commanders and the New York Football Giants, because I figured, you know, the big guy here in the ring, like Big Tex, likes to throw his weight around. I figured you're a big guy, the brute force Bradley Weiss, successful college basketball player turned coach. Our buddy Kyle Supran works for the Commanders. I mean, I figured let's try to put everybody on the spot here. And, you know, this is a really interesting matchup here because for whatever reason, the Commanders are 10-point favorites against the Giants. And I guess everybody's watching the Giants these days and figures, well, they should steamroll them. But, you know, what do you think here on this matchup? Because this is a tough one for you because these are two teams you almost want to avoid picking. But you're 9 games behind. You are trying to make up ground. And this is kind of one of those matches where you really have to think. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Now you got the pressure with a wrestling star here who's out there, and he's got thousands of subscribers that watch him, thousands of views in the ring. So who do you think here with the Washington Commanders at home, 10-point favorites against the New York Football Giants?
You know, Tom, you ready? Here it comes. All right, here it comes. All right. Because listen carefully, ladies and gentlemen, all right? First of all, this man, I mean, listen, you know, you got, obviously I can't talk about the Falcons, but you made it worse by saying you're a Commanders fan. That made it even worse, all right? If it gets worse than the Falcons, it's the Commanders. But listen, the Commanders, by the way, again, another team that has drove me nuts all year, although they have.
Definitely. You know, Brad, I would say, what have we known each other now? 4 years. We've been doing this since early 2020. I think of all the teams in the 4 years on Sportswire, I would say it's them and the Chargers that have driven you the most crazy for different reasons.
For picking, correct, sir. For picks, especially. Yeah. And the Commanders this year have been crazy, although recently they've been better. But they are, and I know everybody's just looking at me and be like, are you crazy? Have you seen the Giants play? All right. They are.
You'll probably have the same thought.
They are untrustworthy with this big of a spread. They are not good enough to be worth this much of a points. I mean, they have not proven anything to anyone that they deserve to be a favorite by 10 points. And by the way, have we forgotten that it was only a few weeks ago that, and I know it wasn't Danny DeVito at quarterback, okay, but at the same time, all right, they actually lost to them. They lost to the Giants 14-7, okay? Yeah. So it's actually crazy enough that the Giants are winning this season series right now against the Commanders. Now, I'm going to make it clear, I don't think the Giants are going to win the game. But for some reason, on a sloppy Sunday, I'm going to call it, okay, in Washington, D.C., okay, the Washington Commanders will find a way to mess this up. They will win, but they will not do their job in covering the spread. I'm feeling very confident about that because of the fact, okay, that the Commanders will get in their own damn way. Okay, they'll find a way to blow it. They'll let the Giants get a backdoor cover late in the game. They are the Commanders, and they do command us to hate on them, which is why I am doing it right now. Okay, I'm going to take the Giants with the spread because I don't think the Commanders can handle it, and I think there's too much pressure on the Commanders, not on me to talk about this. Okay, it's especially on the Commanders to cover a spread like that because I know they're not capable of doing so.
Well, this might be, I think, of a team that's a 10-point favorite that's 4-6. This has to be one of the more recent ones in NFL history. I mean, I have to go back. I'm sure the crack staff can do that for us. But weather's going to be 60 there in Washington by kickoff. So it'll actually be a nice day there. But also here, let me come back to Big Tex. He says no hard feelings to the Brewfors. Okay, so he appreciates that comment. But,
No, it's just the Commanders. It's not you. It's the
all
Commanders.
right, well, I'm gonna have an opinion, so definitely stay tuned for that. But Chris, it is rare, right? A team that's 4-6, that's been 2-6 their last 8 games, but is 10-point favorites here. Obviously, the Giants are certainly at the bottom, figuratively and literally, in the NFL this year, which is certainly makes why for this is that they're 10-point favorites in those. Because I do happen to think a lot of people that are picking this game are probably going to think about this in a hard way. And who do you actually wind up picking in terms of not to win the game, but the actual spread?
Yeah. This game, listen, the Giants normally play Washington well over the years. They've won the last 2 with them this year. And you know what? A couple of games could have went the opposite way, right? The Buffalo game, the Jet game, obviously, that could have been a win.
Both those games. Buffalo was last play of the game. The Jets game, Giants had it won. They basically were handed the game.
Yeah, think about it. If they win those 2 games, they got 4 wins, and they're right in the middle of this wild card race, right? Even with Tommy DeVito at quarterback. But the Giants always play them well. Listen, they're getting 10 points. I mean,
it's high. It's a high spread, yeah.
Yeah, their defense is solid. Maybe they get Barkley running well this. They could get a running game going, take a little bit of pressure off of DeVito. So I'm going to take the Giants with the 10 points. I don't know if they'll win the game, but it'll be a close game because the Giants have played it good. Other than the Dallas games, they've kind of played close games. So I'm going to go with the Giants getting the 10.
And before I get to Justin, I want to say hello to our buddy from the Sports Authorities group, Mr. John Gonzalez. And I shared it actually in our Sports Authorities group, which I know Chris and myself are moderators in, because I actually, for whatever reason, now I can't share all our shows in Facebook groups I'm in now. For whatever reason, not only am I temporarily blocked from streaming live, now I can't share, and I can only share on my Sportswire Radio and Sports Report page, but I now have to go into the groups individually to share these shows. So that tells you Facebook, and I have no idea why. I don't even post anything at all but sports. But, Justin, this is really a fascinating pick to me because the Washington Commanders, who've lost 6 of their last 8 games, they're 4-6, are 10-point favorites over the New York Giants, and I guess the New York Giants, but help me understand this, and what do you think here in this matchup?
All right, first of all, here's a little trivia question for everybody. Who leads the NFL in passing yards? That would be one Sam Howell. Sam Howell has absolutely turned a corner for the Washington Commanders. And listen, you could even point back to the Eagles game 3 weeks ago when he threw for 397 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 38-31 loss to the Eagles. They found their guy. And you know what? The offensive line has pieced things together over the last couple of weeks. I know 4 weeks ago you had that disaster at the Meadowlands, and Sam Howell got sacked 50,000 times. Right, and the Giants won that game 14-7. Tyrod Taylor, quarterback in the Giants in that game. This is a different team. And the emergence of Jahan Dotson and De'Ami Brown to go behind Terry McLaurin. Obviously you have a nice safety blanket in Logan Thomas, tight end. And the 2 running backs, Gibson and Robinson, have stepped up. To me, this was a no-brainer. I think the Washington Commanders are going to start figuring things out. And hell, I'll say it now because, we're not on until next Friday.
Yep.
They're going to give the Cowboys a hell of a time next Thursday. They really are. I think that's going to be a great Thanksgiving Day game between Washington and Dallas because Sam Howell is becoming one of those quarterbacks you could trust. And you know what? We talked about with all those QB injuries. Ain't that many QBs out there you could trust. Sam Howell's starting to become one of them. And he's really growing into the role in his second year in the league. So I like Washington, and I think they're going to win rather comfortably.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Now, I have a ton of comments here before I get to my thoughts on the game, and let me come in here. I have a bunch of them here. Let's go here first with Ron, who says Commanders LOL. Chargers are in our house. Not sure what's worse, being a Patriots fan or a Commanders fan. Now, I'm going to stop you there because nobody feels sorry for the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots, they've won how many Super Bowls, how many appearances they had in the last 20 years. There's not a single soul alive that feels sorry for the Patriots. Commanders, certainly different discussion. The Commanders only play good when they face the Eagles. Well, we're going to find out here today. And also, they need to change to the Maryland Commanders since they play in Andover. Well, that's like, listen, the Nationals don't technically play in Washington, right? That's just kind of for whatever reason. They're in the D.C. area, so they're called Washington. John Gonzalez wants to say Giants are tanking, and Ron says he picked the Commanders only because I've passed the stadium. Well, that's really a great logic there. That's really some hypothesis, and each to its own. Tommy DeVito is a Pop Warner QB. Yeah, listen, well, we're going to find out. But, Brad, I actually agree with you on this. I can't go and pick the Washington Commanders as 10-point favorites. I just think for whatever reason, the Giants' defense will play well enough that I think Washington wins the game. But I'm not convinced that Sam Howell, despite what Justin's telling me, is Dak Prescott is going to go up and down the field and score 45 points or 49 points. I kind of think it's going to be 21-14, something like that. These teams also, it's a rivalry game. These teams, like Chris pointed out, last year, the game in Washington, Sunday night, decided who made the playoffs. Giants played them well earlier a few weeks ago, last month. I kind of think that the Giants will be in the game. But you have to, the old adages, and Brad, we know this better than anybody. We talk about it when St. Joe's and Long Island and Brooklyn play. Look at last year where Brooklyn beats Long Island in Brooklyn, right? You got to throw out the record. You got to throw out the spreads when two teams play in the same division and have history. So in this particular case, I'm going with Washington to win, but the Giants to cover. And also, John's funny. Giants are as bad as the Herrick's basketball team. Well,
don't hate on the Herrick's basketball team. They're actually going to be okay this year.
All right, well, we're certainly getting into basketball season here a little bit here. So, Brad, let's go to another matchup here. We'll go through some games. Obviously, we hope Justin comes back. But I'm curious what your thoughts on another matchup with a really high spread, and that's the Miami Dolphins and the Las Vegas Raiders. Because the Las Vegas Raiders have won 4 consecutive games at home. They're 5-5. They're 2-0 with a new coach in Antonio Pierce, who, by the way, we all know here locally had a very, very good career with the Giants, also played with Washington. And they seem like they've got a little bit of momentum, and they're also there in this cluster of teams, 5-5, 4-5, 5-4. And the Miami Dolphins here are kind of coming off a really, I think, a bye week, if I'm not mistaken. They haven't played. And you've got the Dolphins here, though, 12-point favorites. It's a 1 o'clock matchup. And I'm curious because, again, this is another spot where you're thinking about it. You may not think who's going to win the game, but you're thinking about this cover, and especially in your case, because you're 9 games, you're trying to think of a way to get 11 this week, 12 this week, so you can get yourself into 3rd place, into 2nd place. So I'm really curious, the Brute Force, and where do you go here? Because you've also been through a coaching change, and you know how sometimes in sports that can kickstart a team. And what do you think here? Is it's a 1 o'clock matchup. Those Finns, 12-point favorites, though, at home against the suddenly resurgent Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, Tom. Well, there is something called, logic when it comes to picking. You're not just going to always go with, okay, well, this team's hot and, let's ride the wave with them because they, by the way, let me get to the logic here. They won 2 games with a new coach, and they beat the Giants and they beat the Jets. Both at home. Both teams were absolutely pathetic and asinine. Okay, obviously the Jets couldn't score a touchdown. Okay, and the Giants were just god-awful. Okay, so I'm not going to bash the Raiders. Okay, but at the same time, you kind of made some of the points that I wanted to make right now. The Miami Dolphins are coming off a bye. They've seen this Raiders team play. They're prepared. Okay, they're going to be actively ready to play. They know this is a big game for them to get off the bye and play well. Okay, and the Raiders, listen, they might be one of those teams, Tom, that is a little overly confident right now. Like, yeah, we got 2 wins. We're turning it around. We beat the Jets and the Giants, and we're great. We're this. And then they're going to run into a stadium that they haven't played in. Okay, they've been playing in Vegas the last 2 weeks. They got to go on the road. They got to travel. And I'm going to use a Tom Bryce reference here. Okay. They got to change time zones. They got to go from the West Coast to the East Coast for a 1:00 game. Okay. And they're playing a team that can score touchdowns, does have threats, and has a quarterback that can make throws.
Well, I thought would have had the most yards in the league. That's why I was so surprised he said Sam Howell, Justin, because I would have thought Tua would have been the logic there with the amount of points the Dolphins have scored this year.
But listen, again, they have weapons. They have a quarterback that can throw. They have a team that needs to win. They're coming off a bye. I mean, there's so many reasons for me in this case to take the team like Miami, who, by the way, most of the things that we talk about Miami with is how they can't beat the higher, better teams. But against the weaker teams, they've done their job in most games. And that's why I'm going to pick them to take care of business again and win by 2 touchdowns against the Raiders. Again, the Raiders riding the hot wave against 2 stinky teams from New York, a.k.a. New Jersey, okay? And ultimately, they will come back to life on the road this week against Miami.
And before I get to Chris, John has a funny one here. Will the brute catch the card man? Yeah, that's what he is. He's the classic card store owner that sits there with a Coke. It's almost like the comic book man in The Simpsons that would sit there and just have the, he'd have the soda, he'd have the comic books, he'd be reading them. And that's Rob Maraska. He's not quite Anthony Finkel in terms of like picking a napkin and eeny, meeny, miny, mo, but obviously he's in first place. I mean, for how long? That's to be desired. But, Chris, again, fascinating matchup. I mean, Brad makes some valid points. But the Raiders do have 4 consecutive wins at home. They've won 2 in a row. They do have a new coach, and he's certainly shook things up a little bit. The Raiders' defense has been much improved, but Brad makes some logical points. But, what do you think here? It's there's some interesting matchups this week where there's a lot of teams that have big spreads they're favored for. And what do you think here is the fact that the Dolphins are 1:00 at home, 12-point favorites over the suddenly resurgent Las Vegas Raiders?
Yeah, I think the Raiders' hot streak here is going to end in an ugly way too against the Dolphins. The Dolphins feast on these not so good teams, right? When they play the good teams, they have the problems, and they really should have beat Kansas City a couple of weeks ago. But if Tua could have just hit that one pass, but I don't think the Raiders could keep up with the Dolphins' offense. Dolphins, I think are just going to have one of those games where they score 35, 40 points against this Raiders defense. And the Raiders offense is just not going to score many points against this team. They didn't look good against the Jets. They didn't look good against the Giants. They obviously beat them because both of those teams just were horrible on offense. So, I just think the Dolphins are going to score a lot of points and they will cover 12 points now, you said?
12.
Yeah,
that's 12.
Yeah, I think they'll win by 2 touchdowns.
All right, fair enough here. And Justin, again, Miami heavily favored, no question about it. I think the guys make some great points. But the Raiders have won a couple in a row, and they've got a new coach, and they've got a new attitude. And Antonio Pierce has talked about playing like the Raiders and the swagger. He's talked about being a Raiders fan from the days when they were basically the Raiders, and they have, for now, at least looked a lot better. But, what do you think here? Again, as Miami is coming off a bye, coming off a tough loss, but they are 12-point favorites at home, 1:00 against the resurgent Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders, look, they've been a nice story. They did play extremely well when they beat the Giants. They did put up 30 points. Obviously, they struggled to score against the Jets, and obviously that was one of the uglier games you could have seen all season. But with that being said, I mean, now here comes a real test. And the Dolphins, fresh off a bye, the return of Devon Achane, to go with Mostert in the backfield. I mean, that's just going to be absolutely unstoppable. And, when you said before you thought Tua might have the lead in NFL passing yards, well, one of the reasons why he might not is because of the fact that they've been able to run the ball so incredibly well too. I mean, obviously we know about Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and what Tua's been able to, the way he's been able to play with those guys this year, and the weapons on the offensive side of the ball are just endless. And the emergence of Achane had really sparked them early in the season, and now getting him back from injury, it's going to be a great 1-2 punch with Raheem Mostert. I think they're going to run the ball a lot. I mean, I'm not going to go as far as say it's going to be like the Denver game. It might be close. I mean, I could see Miami dropping 50 in this game. This is one of those prepare for a track meet because Miami, fresh off a bye, fresh off a frustrating loss to the Chiefs in Germany, get ready for the greatest show on grass.
That's a good line. The greatest show on grass. I like that. That's a very, very good line here. Before I pick, let me get to a couple of points here. The Raiders are trash. Don't be fooled, according to John Gonzalez. Let me pull that back up. Sorry, we're having a little bit of an issue there. I hope the Dolphins win. Max Crosby pisses me off. And also here, Aiden O'Connell, another Pop Warner QB. Raiders beat Zach Wilson. That was a funny one. I mean, I still contend I know a few Tommy DeVitos, but what a difference a year makes. I'm actually rooting for the brute force to win. Yeah, because I mean, it's
Really?
I mean, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. I can't believe he said that. Okay. All right. I got a fan.
Well, speaking of that, I know everyone's going to basically kill me for this, but I'm actually going with the Las Vegas Raiders to at least be competitive because I do believe in the. It's 12. 12 is high to me.
Big number.
It's a
lot of big
very
numbers this week.
And that's exactly what I said a few minutes ago, and I'm glad you brought that up because I kind of do believe in the fact that they've won a couple games in a row. They've got some momentum. They've got a coach that's won a Super Bowl. He relates to them. He's a young guy. He speaks their language. He's talked about the Raider way. He's talked about, obviously, getting back to the way the Raiders used to play. And he's also playing for a job. And the Raiders, they're alive in the playoff picture. I mean, everybody kills the Raiders, but they're alive, and I get it. I agree. I don't think they're going to win this game. I definitely don't think that. But I think they can go and lose the game by 10 because you know why, Brad? What has happened this year a lot of times? Teams will come back and get a touchdown and get the backdoor cover. This screams to me backdoor cover. 30-20, something like that. 31-20.
Scoring a meaningless touchdown in the last minute.
Exactly. It's happened.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong because I could see that scenario where Miami's leading big late and then O'Connell and Adams just think and dunk down the field. The next thing you know, they're in the end zone. Boom, cover hits. I mean, we've seen some brutal beats this year in terms of backdoor covers. So you bring up a logical point.
I mean, we saw with the Rams, 49ers.
Difference in attitude. If you've listened to not Aiden O'Connell, if you listen to Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs talk, I mean, they're different players.
Now that
Josh McDaniels is gone, they're just different guys.
And I know this, Brad. Listen, we do college basketball. We're going to bring on some of the guys from Five Towns. Obviously, the men's soccer team is down there in Pittsburgh in the tournament. We certainly will hope that they win tomorrow to keep their season going. But we have college basketball coming back on with some of the guys in Five Towns. We have Drizel and our old friend Corey Jakes coming on here next month. And I see this story all the time. Coach comes in. They start believing in they believe in themselves and they play better than what they are on paper. And then they start to win and start to believe it. I don't think they're going to win here, but I think there's no reason to me why that they can't catch the Dolphins napping and at least be competitive. I'm not saying they win the game, but it's my same logic with the Giants. So we'll see here with that. But, the brute force, Brad Weiss, let's go to a few other games and let's go another game here. That's going to be one of those ugly type games. Another ugly type game where you're going to have to go on the spot and pick a game here. And I'm really curious now because of an injury. Where do you go here? Because it's the Cleveland Browns and your beloved Pittsburgh Steelers. If there's any team this year that has pulled out Houdinis, I mean, if you would talk about the teams this year in the NFL, right, that would be basically the example, the quintessential definition of a Houdini act. It would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. They find ways defensively to win games, and here they are with everything now, with the injuries with Watson, the injuries with Burrow, that they could find themselves. Here we go, Steelers, once again, maybe going another run here. They've got the defense, and they've got a quarterback that pretty much does shut up and don't turn the ball over. And Kenny Pickett, I'm really curious now where you go here, the brute force, because the Cleveland Browns were 4-point favorites here, but I have to think the landscape has drastically changed here in this matchup. And if people could get off here with the Titanic, like most people now with the Watson injury, I'd be curious if you'd be one of them, and I'd be curious to know who you picked, because I know who I picked, but who did you pick with the Cleveland Browns 4-point favorites, 1:00 matchup?
So I revealed earlier in the show, he's trying to get me to do it again. All right, listen, I revealed earlier in the show that the last 2 weeks I've went with the Steelers and got it right. So I do thank the Steelers for that and for making me look good. With that being said, listen, I knew there were a few things I knew, and I'm going to be honest with you. There's not going to be a lot of objectivity when it comes to this my speech right now in this pick, because I don't typically pick the Steelers. For those who never have listened to this show, I very rarely pick the Steelers to win games. But the problem with this is this: they are 6-3. Somehow, some way, I have no idea how they're doing it, because they're getting outscored every single game. Yet somehow, with the season, they're getting outscored. Yet somehow they're 6-3. It's crazy and ridiculous. But give credit to Mike Tomlin. Give credit to the Steelers organization. They know how to win. They find ways to win. With that being said, they're 6-3. So are the Browns. Okay, and I know that they lost their quarterback, and I know they're starting a rookie quarterback, which Mike Tomlin is 24-5 against all time. The issue is that this season, earlier this season, everybody's going to be like, well, it was C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud did it to them, and he did it dirty to them. He killed them. In this kind of similar situation where, Pittsburgh was going in there, everybody was talking about, oh, well, Pittsburgh should win this game. They have C.J. Stroud, a rookie quarterback, and blah, blah, blah. And they went out and they took it to him. For some reason, in a divisional matchup, Tom Bryce, for me, I know deep down, and I'm going to be honest, deep down that I should have picked the Steelers, really, because objectively I want to say that. But something tells me in my heart that picking the Steelers 3 straight weeks in a row is a crime, and I'm not going to do it.
What logic is that after you know what the injury
I told you there was no logic to this one. I am taking the Cleveland Browns simply because I can't pick the Steelers 3 straight weeks, and for some reason, something tells me that in this situation, it's just one of those years where Tomlin always is known for beating these rookie quarterbacks, and it's just not happening this year. I just feel like it's going to happen to him again this week, and it's not because of the offense of the Browns. I really, really believe in that Browns defense. They've been phenomenal all year long. I think they're going to make it really hard for Pittsburgh. This is going to be a very, very low-scoring game, but something tells me at home, Cleveland is going to gut it out in an ugly, low-scoring game. I could see this being, Tom, 13-10, something
That's
like
what the Steelers games have been the whole year, other than the 49ers game, right, early in the year, maybe the Jacksonville game.
Right. And again, that's why I have to be honest and say objectively and logically, I'll be honest and say, since I'm telling you that this is the game I think, it is a Pittsburgh Steelers game to win. Like the way it's going to go, it's one of those games where everybody's going to say, well, it's a Steelers way to win the game. I just don't think it's going to happen this time.
Interesting. I mean, I still don't understand the logic, and I have John Gonzalez with a few comments. I'll read them off later. But, Chris, I'm so fascinated because, again, the Cleveland Browns did have a lot of momentum. They've played really well, and the quarterback, Deshaun Watson, did not have maybe the year you would have hoped for. And they were 6-3, and kind of the way things are breaking, they could very much have had a strong case for a strong chance at making the postseason, maybe doing some damage, but now their season's been changed, and you got the Pittsburgh Steelers, who always find ways to win these type of games. They're kind of where they always are, and Tomlin's defense and Tomlin himself, and it's here we go Steelers once again. But alas, Cleveland is 4-point favorites here at home, 1:00, and I'm so fascinated on what people had picked before or after the Watson injury. But, what do you think here in this kind of black and blue type of matchup here, and 4-point favorite to those Cleveland Browns against the Steelers, 1:00?
Yeah, I think with Watson, I would have definitely went with Cleveland. But I don't trust this kid, the rookie. He had a really bad game in his one start. He did start. And then now you're going to put him up against the Pittsburgh defense. I don't like the matchup at all there. I do agree it's going to be a low-scoring game because Pittsburgh's offense is, maybe a step above the Jets, and that's not really saying much. But I like Pittsburgh. They're getting 4 points. It's going to probably be a field goal game either way. And with 4 points, I feel pretty good in a game like that. So I'll take Pittsburgh with the 4.
Okay, well, we'll certainly see. And I got a bunch of comments from John. I'll get to them. Justin, again, I'm so fascinated because, again, both these teams are 6-3, and they've kind of, I guess, for different reasons, been unlikely 6-3s. And now, again, we've got the news about Cleveland without the quarterback they paid, again, a lot of money for this season, and they're not going to have him at all.
And
we'll
picks.
see and we're going to see if they can even get into the postseason with these games coming up. And Pittsburgh, again, kind of a microcosm of the NFL, but Mike Tomlin and his coaching and his just sheer abilities to find ways to win games with a great defense is probably a couple of games better than the Steelers should be. And I'm curious where you go here, as Cleveland is 4-point favorites, 1:00 at home against those hated Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear the Deshaun Watson injury obviously changes the outlook of their season. I mean, and it changes my opinion in this game. The Browns now have to look. They really have to look to their defense. And a couple of weeks ago, when he got that first start, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, looked kind of overwhelmed, and that's why they went to PJ Walker. But clearly, Kevin Stefanski he's clearly had to have seen enough in practice where he feels like DTR is going to be a guy that they can rely on going forward and not just on a week-to-week basis. But with that being said, I think there's going to be a lot of growing pains. This is just not one of those cut and dry games where they could just rely on Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt, because the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is tremendous. And, the way they've defended the run, TJ Watt, obviously the best defensive player in the league, easily the best pass rusher, and, definitely a favorite for defensive player of the year. But the Browns can also lean on the fact that they don't have to score a ton of points, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers, they don't score a lot of points offensively. But I think this is also going to be one of the few matchups where the Steelers can say that they have the better quarterback. And listen, I've been the number one fan on the Kenny Pickett bandwagon since the day he got drafted. But I can realize he's really struggled, and they've really failed to move the ball. But I think the emergence of Jaylen Warren, I think it really accelerated this offense to a point where I think that they're going to be better this week. And Deontay Johnson's been back. You've had the infighting a little bit with George Pickens, but I think things will smooth over. So with this being the first week that Warren is the new running back the new RB1, I like the Steelers here, and I think they're going to be able to run the ball well on Cleveland, and I think that they're going to be able to. I would say they probably win like 20-13.
Well, look, I mean, the Steelers' key the whole year is don't turn the ball over, time of possession, hang in there. Your defense is like your offense. That's kind of been the way they've won all their games this year. So, I mean, a lot of what you said may drive Brad crazy, but it's kind of been the truth this year. But let me get to a bunch of comments here from John before I kind of go with my obvious pick. Burrow and Watson out for the season. Look out for the Steelers. Now, yeah, I mean, listen, it's definitely open for them to make the playoffs again. Rude is like I think that's pretty accurate. I know it's Philadelphia and Pittsburgh now. Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, they don't like you. Detroit, they seem to like you, but Philly and Pittsburgh, they definitely don't like you. I see Mason Rudolph getting into this game and spitting at Myles Garrett face. Let the fun times begin. That'll certainly be fun. Mm-hmm. If you recollect, Joshua Dobbs began the season as the backup to Watt. Yes, as you recall. Yes, that's correct. Excellent point here. And also, there's somebody here that's kind of putting a bunch of things here, so I'll just leave those at that. LPP, I think he's putting, so I don't know who he is. But so, Brad, who do you think I'm going with?
The Steelers.
I kind of laid my point out going through the picks, because I think the Steelers, again, the defense is like their offense, time of possession. Pickett doesn't turn the ball over. They've got the coaching advantage. And at the end of the day, do you trust a quarterback who has very little experience against the Steelers defense? I think Pittsburgh wins here by 10. I think it's going to be, I think Justice said 20-13. I'd say 21-10, 21-13, something like that. So that's kind of where I go here. So let's get to a few more games here. And let's go to another matchup here, which I think will be, we'll go to the Sunday night and we'll go to the Monday night games last. We'll go with the Jets. We'll go to two more games before that. Brad, I guess obligatorily we should pick our Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. Obviously, our Lions converse because you're loved in Detroit. I'd be curious where you go here, because our Lions are certainly at the top here in the NFC North, and they're 10-point favorites here against those Bears. And maybe you believe in the Bears after last week against the Panthers, but I'm very curious. I would imagine I know where you're going, but what do you think here is the Lions, who got, by the way, a gutty win against the Chargers. As usual, a Charger way to lose. I think just it's the Chargers kind of way to lose. That was definitely one of those. But how do you feel about the Lions here, 10-point favorites at home against the Bears?
Tom, I did this a few weeks ago, and I guess I want to do it again because I just like being interesting and having fun. All right, so where is it? There it is. Okay, all right, lock of the week. Okay, this is an easy one for me. Okay, all right.
Your lips to God's ears. Your lips to God's ears.
Because come on, I mean, seriously, the Lions and the Bears. I mean, this is not even a competition in my eyes. I mean, the Detroit Lions are going to absolutely destroy the Chicago Bears. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not even a great. It's like. I want to find, like, I'm sure you can do a better job than me with this, Tom, but like a fight where one guy's favored by somebody else so badly that it's not even fair that these guys are going in the ring together. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's like me against some guy half my size. I mean, they're obviously going to lose. Okay, so ultimately,
are you saying that was like you and Jason Gordiessa when you were coaching against
me? Let's do this. Me and James DeSimone. If we went and fought, okay, obviously there's a clear-cut winner, and James has no chance. So in this case, it's the same thing with the Lions. The Chicago Bears cannot stop the Lions. The Lions are going to score 30, 40 points once again, just like they did against the Chargers, who have a better defense than the Bears. Okay, and the Bears, who I believe Justin Fields is actually coming back for this game, which is the only thing, okay, that makes me excited for them to actually be in the game at some point. Okay, they'll be in it for the first quarter, maybe the second. Okay, but ultimately, when it comes to the second half, the Lions are going to blow the doors off the Bears. Okay, and this is going to be a very uncompetitive game in the second half. Again, give me the Lions. This is easy for me. I would have taken the spread higher at like 14. Very easy. Give me the Lions by 2 touchdowns, at least, at minimum.
It's interesting you said that because we talked about the Giants game. We talked where they were heavy underdogs, and you were kind of like, you thought about it, right? In one case, you picked the Giants, and the Raiders, I made a case for the Raiders, and you kind of dismissed me. But this one, you're very confident, so I'm happy to hear that. But, Chris, again, Lions certainly got an important win on the road, redeemed themselves against the Chargers, kind of a Chargers typical game. Bears, for what it's worth, are coming off a win against the Panthers, and obviously we'll know that that's, I guess, in a way good for the Bears, maybe for what that's worth. But again, here, Lions certainly want to continue their foothold on top of the NFC North. They are 10-point favorites here at home against the Bears, and I'm curious because we'll see the Lions twice in the next 5 days. We always get them to kick off Thanksgiving, and we'll see them here Sunday, 1:00. What do you think?
You know what? The Bears got Khalil Herbert, their running back, coming back this week, and you got Justin Fields coming back this week. So maybe Chicago could kind of put up a fight against Detroit, but I think Detroit's offense is just right now they are scoring at will. You got their running game going now. You got Gibbs and Montgomery at running back. The only thing that bothers me about Detroit is their defense. I don't.
Yep.
It's got to get better for the playoffs because they're not going to be able to stop San Fran or Philly in the
Philadelphia,
so,
even Dallas. Even Dallas.
Yeah, even Dallas. Right. Exactly. So, but I think in this game, I think you could easily see Detroit winning by a couple of a couple of touchdowns easy. So I think they'll cover this one.
Okay, all right. So let me get to Justin real quick because I know Justin obviously is having some technical difficulties. So what I'll do is I'll go to the Jet game and then I'll give Justin closing thoughts just to be safe on that. So Justin, I'll go with you. Obviously, real quick, Lions 10-point favorites against the Bears. Certainly, Lions do have momentum, 7-2. They're right up there in terms of the top of the NFL, and the Bears, for what it's worth, are coming off a victory. But what do you think here in this matchup?
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Lions here, but I don't. Unlike Brad, I don't want to call this the lock of the week, especially with the spread, because I do think the Bears offense is going to get a massive boost with the return of Justin Fields and Khalil Herbert. Something tells me that there is every opportunity for this to end up into a 38-35 shootout where obviously I think the Lions are going to win the game, definitely. But something's just telling me that this is going to turn into a shootout. So just for the sake of what I picked in our group, I'm going to take the Lions. Don't think I'm all that confident in that though.
Interesting.
With the big number.
Yeah, it's one of those, again, similar to the Giants Commanders, the rivalry game. And, you think about it, maybe the Bears are motivated.
Chris pointed out the struggles of the Detroit defense, and we saw it last week, right? The Chargers moved the ball up.
They're giving
down
up
the
23 a
field.
game, by the way. Lions, that's a fair point. They're giving up 23 a game.
That's not, that unfortunately to me is a recipe for losing in the first round.
And this season's NFL, 23 a game is like giving up almost 28, 29, 30 a game. Because remember, offense is down to levels.
Is definitely down this year. Absolutely.
Listen, you guys have said it all the time in the Sportzwire radio group. It's almost like football has kind of been set back like the clock 50 years.
A little bit.
All right, so let me run real quick here. John's obviously got Motown Brute will be in Detroit soon stealing towels. Yeah, you might need them because the weather is actually starting to turn. So maybe you could use those towels. Bears are tanking for Marvin Harrison Jr. Yeah, listen, you got to be happy if you're a Bears fan. You get picks.
They're probably going to take the quarterback, though. If they get the first pick via the Panthers, they're probably going to take the quarterback, Williams.
Yeah, because Justin Fields, he's getting banged up. Have you seen enough of him to go forward with him being the franchise quarterback? I don't know. Yeah, if they could get a quarterback at 1 or 2 and then trade their other pick that they're going to have in the top 2 or 3, trade down and maybe get another first-round pick for that. And I think, I think they're drafting a quarterback.
Yeah.
All right, here. So obviously, I'm just going to save everybody the drama because I realize I'm going to go to Justin and then you, Brad, because Justin I know is having some technical difficulties, so I want to at least get him pick on the Jet game. But I'm obviously going with the Lions because I always pick the Lions, but I think to me it's obvious that I think Detroit. Yeah, it's a shocker. I know, shocker, right? But I do have at least reasons. At least the beginning of the season, it's almost like the card man or the napkin Anthony Finkel. But in this case, I do think that the Lions should win the game comfortably just because of the matchups, and I think ultimately being at home, and I think that they do get a bit of a bounce off the Chargers. But Justin, I know obviously you've got some Wi-Fi issues, so I want to go to you. And then I'll give you the closing thoughts, and I'll let Brad and Chris, because we'll just pick the 2 games after that, Sunday and Monday. We'll let everybody bounce after that. But obviously, Jets and Bills. Certainly, Buffalo, 7-point favorites here. At home, they have certainly been left a lot to be desired with the Bills. And our Jets, we spoke about here quite a bit a little while ago here on the show. So I'm really curious, where do you go here? Do the Jets maybe bounce back? Do they keep it close? Or maybe does Buffalo get it right here after a coaching coordinator change and find a way maybe to get back on track for really it's a must-win game for both teams. The loser of this game pretty much could be sitting permanently on the outside looking in of this very clouded AFC playoff picture.
Yeah, especially if the Jets win this game, because the Bills would be 0-2 against the Jets.
They lose tiebreakers, yep.
And that would be a loss in a tiebreaker. I'm going to start by saying that this spread is absolutely and utterly disrespectful. Because what have you seen? And listen, I'm going to put the Jets aside for a second. What have you seen from the Buffalo Bills that makes them a touchdown favorite in this game? I have not seen enough. Their offense lately has been almost as putrid as the Jets. Now, they've actually scored a couple touchdowns. The Jets haven't. That's one difference. But you know what? Josh Allen's played some poor football. And you know what? It's time to have a conversation about Josh Allen. You know what? He's like I said before, he's becoming the Brett Favre where, yeah, he might throw 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's going to throw 3 picks. And I think he's going to throw a couple picks in this game. I don't know if the Jets are going to win. I'm going to take the Jets on the spread, absolutely. I do probably think the Bills eke it out, but I'm not so confident because you know what? Josh Allen, like I said, in 10 games against the Jets in his career, he's 6-4, but he's thrown 9 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And this year, he threw the 3 interceptions on opening night. I could see him throwing a couple more. You know what? When the Jets get takeaways, they're usually pretty successful. And that's going to have to be the recipe for this game. As for their offense, I don't know what I need to say. I mean, Zach Wilson, to me, Zach Wilson, I think, played a very good game against the Raiders. Obviously, interception aside, because late in the game he made that poor decision and didn't see the linebacker, and the linebacker picked it off, and that was the ball game. And even still, the Jets had an opportunity because they forced a 3-and-out. And to me, I mean, Zach showed why he's got arguably one of the best arms in the NFL. I mean, you saw the way he avoided Max Crosby and threw that ball to the end zone.
Yep.
That was damn near caught too. I
He
mean,
had the throw before that to get them in the middle of the field. He had that strike, that like 30-yard,
Yep.
20+ yard throw there.
to me, the quarterback's shown progress, right? And you guys know full well. I was never a Zach Wilson supporter from day one.
No.
Have I seen growth out of him? Absolutely. Has it been marginal? Yeah, it's been marginal. That's the problem. And we need to see leaps and bounds. And it needs to start on Sunday. I need to see him go out there, throw for 275, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Get Garrett Wilson involved. Garrett Wilson says he's going to play. I know he's questionable at the elbow. And we'll see what effect Izzy Abanaconda has. How they plan on utilizing him. See how they plan on utilizing Jeremy Ruckert. Because Ruckert's actually been a big factor and a big positive in the Jets' run game. Anytime you see the Jets make a big run, and it's not called back by penalty, usually Ruckert's in the game. And I think that's going to be the big key to this game. So I'll take the Jets on the spread.
Fair enough here. And I guess I should give you closing thoughts here because you're obviously having some Wi-Fi issues. I'll let to Brad and Chris talk about the game in a second here. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say anything? Also want to wish you and your family a happy Thanksgiving because this will be our last show before we're on the air. So for Thanksgiving, so hope your turkey plans will be happy and prosperous. And also if you're doing Black Friday shopping or in between watching the Jet game.
I'll be working, actually. Unfortunately, I'll be working.
Oh, I work every day, so anything else you want to plug, share, or say on that note? And happy Thanksgiving to you and your beautiful family.
You as well. Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, just real quick, wanted to quickly touch upon the whole sign stealing scandal that's going on with the University of Michigan.
Yes, I saw that before we went on the air.
We know that Coach Harbaugh's been suspended for 3 games, obviously, effective last week, obviously, with the game they played last week against Penn State. But obviously that means he won't be on the sidelines next Saturday against Ohio State. And obviously as the college football playoff nears, first of all, is Michigan going to be a playoff team, right? Are they going to beat Ohio State? They've beaten them the last couple of years and, have kind of taken hold in the series. But I think that game's going to be interesting. Obviously, I would say more so tune-up games. I'm not exactly sure who Michigan has this week, but I know Ohio State's got Minnesota. So that'll be a good one final tune-up before that game. And I think it's going to make that game extra heated too. Because, Ohio State's been, very, very, I don't know how to say it, but
you're trying to think of the word, but it's kind of been one of those seasons where you're trying to think about it and think about it carefully. I get it.
Yeah, they've been defiant on this whole Michigan scandal too, and they're set out to end this 2-game losing streak. Ohio State throughout the 21st century really has kind of owned the rivalry, but Michigan with Harbaugh the last couple of years have taken it back. So that's just some of the things I got here. As you can see, I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit too.
I know that feeling. I went through about a 3-week period where it was like I never thought I was going to get my voice back, and I've been there. This was like
too, I've also been fighting, I guess, some bronchitis or something over the last 2 weeks.
And you know what? It's everybody I know is sick right now, and I got off being sick in October.
And you get that cough that just lingers on and on.
I had it, man. I had it. Yep, I had it, and I know it's like a drag, and you throw. I had it, so I have a feeling that you're getting what I have.
So if you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter at JGOnelli12. Instagram is JGOnelli91.
So listen, go feel better. Go get some rest. I know you're out there like working outside all the time. So take it easy. Let's keep our fingers crossed you don't get what I have and it doesn't linger for week after week. And we'll see you next week. And we'll talk a lot about what if and what could have happened and everything else in the world of the NFL. We'll mix in some baseball. And thank you, my friend, for all you do. And happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you next week.
You as well. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving, Justin.
All right, that was Justin Gianelli. We hope Justin hangs in there. I really hope, for his sake, he doesn't have what I get. But obviously, here I want to get both of your guys' thoughts here on the Jet game. Then we'll do the Sunday night and the Monday night game, and we'll get out of here. So, Chris, again, Jets, Bills. We know that there's a lot on the line here. Justin spoke a lot about it. Buffalo is 7-point favorites here at home. Certainly, Buffalo has left a lot to be desired. We know the Jet story. I know you and Sharman spoke a lot about it. I'm going to rewatch it for sure and re-listen to it before I go live. I'm live tomorrow, so I'll play it before I go on tomorrow. But, what do you think here? It's a must-win for both games. Buffalo's 7-point favorites here, 4 o'clock matchup.
Yeah, listen, I wish I could feel confident about an upset alert, for this game. I would love for the Jets to go up to Buffalo and win and kind of get on a roll here and, to at least get into December with a chance to get into the playoffs, and then maybe we'll see Aaron Rodgers. But I just don't see enough from the offense whatsoever. I mean, and, we were talking about it on the podcast, like the coaching is really what's bothering me now, just as much as the offense, because you keep seeing what we're talking about, the holding penalties and, the late hit on the quarterback. I mean,
Yep.
This is like every week it's something else, and stuff like that goes back to coaching. You know what I mean? And I hate to say it because I love, Coach Salah. I think he's great, but maybe he's going to be one of those guys that we're going to be talking about in another year as, yeah, he's a really good defensive coordinator, but maybe not a great head coach, you know? And our offensive coordinator, I think, is probably one of the worst right now.
Oh my God. I heard 3 people talk about that.
Yeah. He's just, listen, he had 2 or 3 great years with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. That's awesome. But
just like we spoke about with LaFleur earlier in the show and kind of the desired record there, it certainly left a lot to be outstanding. It's the same thing with Hackett.
So I don't feel confident whatsoever. I like the points only because I think they'll keep it close because of their defense. But I also think the Bills could kind of run up the score a little bit if they could get any kind of momentum on offense, right? Because, like Justin said, Josh Allen is going to throw a lot of picks. He throws, especially against us. You know what? With the OC change, maybe, I don't know. But I'll still take the Jets with the 7 to cover, but I think the Bills will win the game.
Fair enough here. And the brute force, Bradley Weiss. So fascinated where you go here because, again, your season, you're in this, again, purgatory, as you say, 9 games behind the card man, the guy that basically flips the baseball card collection, almost like those who used to play the baseball cards on the stoop. He's probably looking at his baseball card collection now, looking at his Shohei Ohtani autographed and Mike Trout game used that card and figuring, how am I going to find a way to win this one? And here you are sweating this one out, making up some ground, though, in the standings. Only 9 games back, and you're thinking about it here. Buffalo Bills, New York Jets. Do you put the homer hat here? Maybe Jets find a way to come out with a win, or do the Bills maybe find a way to kind of almost do the rally card here? And I am so fascinated here at this 425 matchup, which for those that might be listening, be watching in Wheelers in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. So if you are out there, you want to stop by and see me and a couple of different guys that have been on Sportswire Radio, a couple of my buddies, Mr. Josh Bailey, Mr. Joseph Rosas, Mr. David Kelly, also New York Islanders fan, and we'll be at the game, at the bar watching the game, although I don't drink, so the drink will be on you. But the brute force, Bradley Weiss, I am so fascinated where you go here in this matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. Where is your confidence factor here?
So I got to first put this up on the screen because I am going to do this, but I will be a little boring in saying I actually 100% agree with Chris Pizzea and Justin Gianelli. I'm on the same page as them. And, I like to come and be the exciting guy and be like, oh, I'm going this way. I'm doing something different. But at the same time, I feel no different. And I can't lie about that. I do think the Jets defense is going to do their job against Buffalo. They're going to make them turn the ball over. They're going to make them look putrid like they did the first week. But just like Chris said and just like Justin said, it's just a matter of this offense. And I'm not going to be as harsh. I know, again, I'm not making Nathaniel Hackett sound like some genius, okay? But Nathaniel Hackett did not sign up to coach Zach Wilson. This was not why he was brought here. Okay, we all know the reason why he was brought here was to work with Aaron Rodgers. So I'm not exactly going to indict him. I am going to agree with Chris Bizet because I am a coach and I do understand how this works. That the amount of mistakes, penalties, a lack of, having too many men on the field at times, little things like that. I mean, that's coaching. You got to do a better job. The amount of penalties, the amount of mistakes. The fact that we see this repetitively week by week, I mean, it's definitely on the coach and the staff. I'm not going to go after Saleh completely, but, between him and his staff, they got to do a better job because the Jets have had chances to score touchdowns like we saw against the Raiders. They have had chances to make big plays, but they've gotten called back by penalty, so they got to do a better job. But again, we talked about it earlier in the show. Why should I feel confident that the New York Jets are going to score a touchdown? I don't. I don't feel confident they're going to score a touchdown. I hope they do, but I really feel like the only way they're going to do it, Chris, is if they do it on the defensive side. I don't really feel like the offensive side is going to generate a touchdown in this game because, listen, they couldn't do it against the Raiders. They hadn't done it against the Chargers for a long period of time. I mean, they just haven't shown me they can do it, and I just don't believe Zach Wilson is good enough to make it happen. And again, even if they do score one touchdown, that still might not be enough to beat a team like Buffalo. So I am going to take them to cover the spread. I do think the defense will keep them in the game. But in the end, the Buffalo Bills are going to win because the Jets are going to have an inability to score points, especially touchdowns. Zerline will do his job. He's been great. He's been kicking. He's been making field goals. But field goals don't win you football games. They kind of supplement you from getting, into games and staying in games. But if you can't score touchdowns in the red zone, you're not going to win. And we know that as Jets fans, and we've seen it the hard way.
And that's exactly why the brute force Bradley Weiss, I'm picking the Buffalo Bills to cover. Because there's been nothing that has shown me that the New York Jets, unfortunately, can get in the red zone and score a touchdown. When you have not scored more than 2 touchdowns in a single game this year, I think it's something like there's a streak now. I think it's like, 13, 14 games in a row or something like that, where the Jets have not scored more than 2 touchdowns. It's a recipe for failure. The Steelers, we talked about, the Steelers, they've been able to find ways. But Tomlin, again, they're a Houdini act. They're a certainly very rare act, and the Steelers, they just find ways. But to me, look at the Jets and Wilson and the plays he makes. Yes, Justin's right. He's played better, but playing better still hasn't equated to the fact that you haven't gotten into the end zone. You've done anything. You move the ball up and down the field. You can't get a touchdown. That's unacceptable. Buffalo, I think at the end of the day, you're going to give them too many chances. I think they're at home, 4:25 kickoff. I'm not confident about it, like you would say, confidence factor, but I think Buffalo finds a way to win and cover, and they pull away because I also think they're going to have week 1 on their minds, and now they know with the coaching change, and this is pretty much it for them. Now, I think they're on the ropes, no question, but it's hard for me in this spot to pick the Jets. And I've done it before. I've actually picked the Jets a few times, but to me, the Bills aren't the Raiders. So at the end of the day, I'm going to pick the Buffalo Bills here, because the 7-point spread, I think it's just enough here. So we'll go here very quickly, Brad. Let's go to the Sunday night game real quick. And obviously, Uncle Rob's Red Hot Vikings. We spoke a lot about them. And these resurgent Denver Broncos, who also are on a winning streak, by the way, 3 consecutive wins in a row, and they're very much alive. And they were left for dead, and they've just about dug themselves out of the grave here, very much alive in this AFC playoff picture. And they're actually favored at home here. They're 2-point favorites. It's really one of those avoid them games. But, who do you go with? I think Uncle Rob is probably telling you to go with the upset alert. But what do you think here in this matchup of 2 suddenly red-hot teams between the Denver Broncos and the Minnesota Vikings?
This was a difficult decision for me because I felt like it could really go either way. But I'm sorry, Uncle Rob. Okay, and I did get his brand new book, by the way, that just came out.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Yep, good point.
He just came out with his Volume 2 book, and I'm going to make him a little upset right now. I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos to win this game. I'm going to take them with the spread. Listen, I just think that this is going to be one of those close games. And I know Denver has not been that good at home, even though their most recent game at home is actually a win against Kansas City, which was a good game, and they played really well. On the defensive side and offensively, they did enough.
That game they lost at home. The Washington game they lost at home. The Raider game they lost at home.
Yeah, so they haven't done well at home, but their most recent performance was good enough to win a game at home. And I just think, a Minnesota team who's been playing really well. They're on a hot streak. It's hard to keep these win streaks in the NFL sustainable, winning a lot of games in a row. And, I know, again, I was the biggest complimentary person early in the show of Joshua Dobbs and what he's done. I know he's getting more familiar with the team, which will help him do better in the future and into this week. But I just think that something is actually clicking with Denver. I do actually think that Russell Wilson is starting to look a little better. I do like their Denver running game. I do see their defense stepping up and stepping up, making more plays rather than what they did early in the season when they let up 70 points to the Dolphins. They've definitely played a lot better, and I see a lot more resilience from them. And I'm starting to see a little more of a team looking like a team in Denver. So I'm going to take the Broncos in a very close game, but I do see them winning late. And I do see Russell Wilson actually making more plays than Joshua Dobbs, which is a little bit of a debate. But right now I think he's playing good enough football, where he's going to lead this team to a win. And surprisingly, Tom, as crazy as this sounds, Denver still has a chance to make noise.
Yeah, you know what? And that's what we talked about here. Listen, there's a cluster of teams, 4-5, 5-5, 5-4, 6-4. I mean, so you can't count them out. And they've got Sean Payton. They still got Russell Wilson. And their defense, we know, has played well. I mean, their defense has played a lot better in this winning streak. We think about the 70-point game weeks back against the Dolphins, but since then, they've actually played really well defensively. So, Chris, I'm curious, because there's actually two red-hot teams. The Broncos looks like they've almost gotten themselves off the mat here. 1-5, very hard to do in this league. And they have a chance to maybe pull it off if they win here, the Sunday night game. But the Vikings have definitely been the story here, kind of this Cinderella story here with their longest winning streak in the league at the moment. But, what do you think here? Again, it's a tough game to pick. It's a true toss-up. Denver is 2-point favorites at home. And what's your thoughts?
Yeah, you know what? Since they lost against us, since they lost against the Jets, they lost the following week to Kansas City in a tight game, 19-8.
Yep.
So their defense, their last 4 weeks, they've given up 19, 17, 9, and 22
21.
points.
Yeah, 21.
So the defense played really well. This is doing just enough. I think Russell Wilson's is, he's having a okay season, not a great season, but I'm going to say a good season.
Yeah. Good point.
I think they'll win this game. A field goal maybe at the end, maybe a little bit more, but I definitely see Denver winning this game. That they're hot, and I want to see the stats on how many teams have made the playoffs after starting the season 1-5.
Oof.
Probably not many, right?
Not many.
I'm going to take that. There's not many.
But Tom, this is another example of a team where, Russell Wilson's a healthy quarterback. There's a lot of teams without them right now. And if they could start to get hot here and ride some momentum, this is crazy that we could say it, but Denver could potentially be a dark horse team that starts to make noise and starts to surprise people if Russell Wilson stays healthy and they continue to play the defense that they're playing. So it's crazy to say, because a few weeks ago we were saying that they sucked and they had no chance and everything's a mess. And you go from that to now saying that they could potentially make noise is pretty big, drastic change in a matter of 3 weeks.
2015 Kansas City Chiefs, 1970 Cincinnati Bengals, and I believe the 2018 Indianapolis Colts are the teams that come to mind that were 1-5 and made the playoffs. So those are the teams. The most recent ones would be the 2015 Chiefs and the 2018 I just messed it here. The Colts in 2018. So those are the teams. Yeah. So 3. And if the Broncos do, but they still have a lot of football. But the fact is that, they're alive. You have to give them a lot of credit. Looked like we were killing them going into the Jet game. We were killing them after the Dolphins game. There was fingers being pointed. Russell Wilson had fingers pointing at him. But you know what? You give them a lot of credit. And I kind of think that this is the moment that they kind of win here at home and they kind of get off the mat and they get 4 wins in a row, and you can't count them out because they've played the Chiefs already. That's off the schedule. They got the Chargers still. These are games that are winnable games, and they have the Raiders still, I believe, and those are games that are going to decide this season. You know what? Why not? If they could go 9-8, 10-7, and who would want to play the Broncos with their defense with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson? I wouldn't want to face them. Would you want to face them as a wild card? If they win this week, it's a possibility. Can't kill him. Can't count him out. I mean, there's so many teams in the AFC that really are in it. So why not them? So I kind of think 2-point spread. Broncos find a way here in the Monday night game here. Are you ready to brute force Bradley Weiss? Our last one here tonight before we get to closing thoughts here. And it's the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, a rematch of last year's Super Bowl. I would imagine here we're going to definitely get the Kelsey versus Kelsey Bowl, the Swift family, the Kelsey family. We see already Taylor's got lyrics for Kelsey and in Argentina, and Kelsey was out there on the bye week. And I'm real curious to brute force where you get here and where you maybe have thought about this matchup while you were watching the Taylor Swift Eras Tour in the movie theaters, and you were listening to the Kelsey's podcast, and you were thinking about who to pick here because you don't want to be on the Swifties' bad side. You don't want to be, though, on the Kelsey's bad side. But who do you got here in a rematch of last year's Super Bowl? Those Chiefs, 2.5-point favorites, though. Monday night, 8:15. Are you ready? Hopefully the best Monday night game of the season.
Oh, 100%. I think it definitely will be. I think it'll live up to the hype. It'll be a great game. But listen, I'm going to say this, and you kind of made me think about it when you said, you can't go against Taylor Swift. You certainly cannot go against Taylor Swift. But with that being said, I have done it, and I've picked against the Chiefs, and they've burned me multiple times this season, and I'm not going to get burnt again. I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win this game. In a game in which, listen, I think the Eagles, obviously a great team. They have a great offense. Their defense is playing well. I like a lot about the Eagles.
Haven't played as well as last year, though. Have not played as well last year.
No, but here's the thing I wanted to say. I think they're playing well. The Kansas City defense is playing really well. They're playing again, shockingly, you could say that the Chiefs' defense has been better than the Chiefs' offense, which I don't think anyone in their right mind would have thought, having had Mahomes and Kelsey on that side of the ball. But the Chiefs' defense has been very impressive, and I think that's really what's keeping me confident in picking the Chiefs this week in this matchup. I mean, to do what they did against the Dolphins, they had a great performance with them in Germany. They held them down. They've had some really good performances recently. I know the Denver game was kind of a blemish, but that was more the Chiefs' offense not getting the job done, Mahomes having had a flu. I don't really take that as much on the Chiefs' defense. I like what the Chiefs' defense has done, and I think the offense, I know that all these receivers can't catch the damn ball, but they have been better of recent, and I think Travis Kelce will have a good game in this one. And I do think that there's a lot to be said for how the Chiefs defense is going to handle Philadelphia. So I like the Chiefs in this matchup. I like I said, I'm kind of nervous that since I haven't picked them in the last few weeks, I've gone against Taylor Swift, that I can't do it again. But at the same time,
wait for what I say when I pick. So,
At the same time, objectively, though, they're at home. They're at Arrowhead. It's going to be a crazy environment. It's going to be a great game. And I just see some Mahomes magic at the late end of the game helping them win. And again, their defense will do a great job as well. I'm very confident in the Kansas City defense.
All right, we'll have to see. And Chris, obviously, we know you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, and obviously my pick might surprise people here. Maybe not. But it is a rematch of last year's Super Bowl and the Chiefs and the Eagles, and certainly could very well be a rematch of last year's Super Bowl. We don't get those too often. It does not happen in NFL history too often. And you get a rematch of the previous year's Super Bowl. I think Cowboys-Bills comes to mind, I think, in more recent times, but it doesn't happen that often when it comes to Super Bowl teams that face off with each other from the prior year. But where do you go here in this 8:15 Monday night game? Arguably should be the best Monday night game of the season. And Chiefs, though, are 2.5-point favorites here in Arrowhead. And what do you think?
Yeah, this is, like you said, it's a rematch of last year's Super Bowl, and this could very well be a preview of this year's Super Bowl as well. Listen, Philly hasn't played their best, but they've only lost one game all season, and that was against the Jets, right, where they basically gave them the game. So, whenever you got Kansas City coming off a bye, you got to look at Andy Reid's record. Andy Reid coming off a bye as a head coach is 20-3. That's pretty impressive. Sirianni is 2-0 in his short career, which is pretty good. But I don't know. I hate picking against Kansas City. I'm like Brad. Whenever you pick against them, that's when you get burnt, right? And coming off a bye with Andy Reid, I think this is where the Eagles take their second loss. I don't think it's going to be a blowout either. I think it's going to be one of those back and forth games. But on the other flip side, maybe we'll see Philly start to play I mean, they're 8-1, but maybe they're going to play even better. Maybe they'll start playing up to their potential, right? Because their defense just hasn't looked that great. The
No.
offense a little bit out of sync, but they're still winning games, right? And that's the bottom line in any sport. So,
Yeah.
but I'll listen. It's in Kansas City. I'll go with Kansas City and Andy Reid coming off a bye. Close game. I'll say like a 27-24 game.
You know, the logic after everything you said, and I thought the same way, but for whatever reason, I think the Eagles players have last year on their minds, and I do believe in some of that, and that's why I kind of think here, for whatever reason, the Eagles, if there's ever a game to prove that they are the elite team in the league this year, the 8-1, maybe not the best 8-1 in recent memory. Although the Vikings last year would certainly be a top contender as well. But I think for whatever reason, I kind of think the Eagles find a way to win here. I don't think the Chiefs also have played as well either. I think that they've had some games, we spoke about the Denver games. That's definitely even the Miami win. I mean, Kansas City's also had some games left to be desired. And even we think about the opening week, how about against our Lions, Brad? I mean, so to me, I don't know. Call me crazy, but I think the Philadelphia Eagles win this game here. I think that the Eagles, if there's ever a game that they can kind of show and put themselves together, I think this is the game. I do agree with you about reading the buys. I think it's Monday night prime time, but something tells me here that the Philadelphia Eagles find a way and maybe, just maybe, pull off the upset. So that's kind of what I think. But I'm also 2 games out of first place. So part of me is thinking Cardman probably goes Kansas City. So the Cardman. I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? I don't usually think that way, but I was like, in this case, the obvious law of logic, everybody's going with Kansas City. And what kind of saved my week last week was I picked in some games where everybody else didn't, and I kind of caught back up, and I kept myself within 2 games. So we'll have to see. I mean, Billy had a great week last week. I mean, Billy really made up the most ground. So we'll see if Billy overtakes Cardman. Something tells me Billy's going to overtake Cardman, but we'll see. I mean, John Gonzalez has got the great lines. But you know what? If you liked what you wanted to hear from us and you wanted to tell us differently, sportswireradio.org, the brand new link. You can watch us there anytime, listen to us anytime. If you want to contribute, we have our blog. The blog is back under Sportswire Radio, so if anybody wants to contribute, write some articles. I'll have a few announcements coming up in a few weeks where we'll be reactivating the blog. You can do that here. Also, watch our shows on our YouTube link here before we sign off. You can check us out here anytime for past, present, and future shows here. So great stuff here, Chris. I'm going to go to you for closing thoughts first, and anything else you want to plug, share, or say. And I'm looking forward to listening to you with Patrick and also on Sharman. I'm looking forward to being with you guys in a couple of weeks toward when the year is out. I'll have a few things I want to get off my chest, and I'll definitely come on to the show, and we'll talk about that here as we get closer to the end of the month. But anything else you want to plug, share, or say? And I also want to wish you and your beautiful family a very happy Thanksgiving, and hopefully it will be a happy and prosperous one. And anything else you want to plug, share, or say, be my guest.
Thank you very much, Tom. Brad, happy Thanksgiving to you guys and the family. Hopefully it's a safe one as well.
Yes.
Hopefully this weekend goes well for the Jets, right? Hopefully we can score a touchdown or 2 and actually win a game. Not expecting it, but I'm hoping so. And Sharman and I will be back probably Wednesday, reviewing the game, and hopefully it's not a carbon copy of what it's been the last few weeks. And Patrick and I will be back Monday or Tuesday with Talking Rivals, and we'll be catching up on any rumors that are going to be going around.
About the A's, right? Moving to Las Vegas officially. Talk about that.
Yep. I still think they need a plan. I was watching a video too where they really don't have a plan yet about where they're going to go and
after next season. Yeah,
money wise, stadium plan. They don't have any really major plans. So actually, in Vegas, next 3 years. They're not going to get to Vegas till 2028, I believe.
I saw that, yeah, and I think the contract at the Coliseum is till next year, and after that, they don't know what they're going to do.
Right.
I mean, that's really.
They could play in the minor league in Las Vegas. There's a minor league stadium in Sacramento they could play. So that's going to be interesting where they end up. And the union's not going to be happy about that either. So so this is far from over. So
do they stay back in the Coliseum? I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. the players union is going to step in. So this is not going to be, an easy fix here for the next couple of years. So that'll be
It's
interesting.
worse. I think it's worse than the Expo situation, because the Expo situation, like, okay, that year they moved. This is now going to be a quandary. You got 4 years with this. This is
exactly. So this is going to be ugly. Major League Baseball dropped the ball years ago on this, but and Yamamoto.
Yeah, I remember years ago we were all live with the Pinstripe Chronicle guys, and I remember 2+ years ago talking about this situation then with you guys.
It goes even further back too.
Yep,
It's ridiculous. It's been bad for a while. Their owner's horrible. And Yamamoto's going to be posted, I think, on Monday. So the rumors are really going to start to heat up next week. So be nice. I know it's Thanksgiving, but anyway, everybody, happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
You know where you can find me, CP7NY. At Talking Rivals, at Liftoff Jets, and
he's also on Threads, by the way. Threads, we're on Threads and CP7NY. Plug yourself on Threads.
That's right. Yeah, on Threads, right. And
I have been using Threads. I actually now am on Threads. I've been using it to plug the shows. Yes, and I think people like the Threads. So, I mean, I'm trying to build up the Threads. So definitely plug yourself on Threads. Great stuff. Love the shows you do. I really try to keep them in the rotation. I really appreciate everything you do for us here on Sportswire. And thank you for being a part of us here. Now, we certainly didn't save the best for last, but we saved the biggest for last. He hasn't had one of these in a while. So the Brute Force, Bradley Weiss, I'm sure you're going to have a lot to say here in a short amount of time. So I turn it over to you for some closing thoughts. Be my guest. The floor is yours. Fire away.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for another great show. Excited to have been back today. Thank you, Chris Bazea. Thank you, Justin Gianelli. Of course, Randy Dillon as well was here earlier. So thank you guys.
And we wish Rob Maraska well, who may be back with us, maybe not. He'll share
Rob Maraska, we wish well. TBK, we wish well. So, and all our great supporters out there, thank you for watching and supporting us as always. You can follow me on social media at Brad Weiss 20 on Twitter, searching at Bradley Weiss on Facebook, and obviously on Instagram at bweiss 20 and at Coach Brad Weiss. I also want to definitely give a shout out to our new website, sportswire.org. I got to check it out. It's pretty cool. I enjoy it.
A lot of people like it. I think a lot of people like it more than the old Sportnarium website. People used to always ask me, well, Sportnarium, what is that for? I've sent the link out to people. Some of our core supporters that are outside kind of our realms, and they were like, wow, that was really good. So people really liked it. So I've been glad about that.
Yeah, I'm excited to continue to work with the website. I might get myself back into some blogging as well. So I'll post some stuff over there. I did it in the past, so I probably get back into that. I also want to, before I talk about our Golden Eagles, Tom Bryce, I want to give a shout out to everybody who made their high school basketball teams, including those who waited for me at Plainview JFK High School. The JV team, we took 16 really talented young men. I'm very excited to coach them this year. The varsity team as well took 16 players. So 32 players of the school got to make a team and be a part of a great basketball program. We're really excited for the season. We have our first scrimmage a week from tomorrow. We play a game at the Nassau Coliseum this year. We're very excited for what's to come for the season and the future of the program. So I'm looking forward to that. Speaking of future programs, obviously it's been a great start to the season for our Golden Eagles over at St. Joe's, Long Island. I know we had a tough loss tonight, but you got to give credit where credit's due. St. Lawrence is a very good basketball team. They made us, struggle a little bit on the offense.
Had the lead at halftime. We're up 7 early in the second half. Yeah. But, a kind of a common theme for us in the past, in the middle of the second half, let them get on a run. And unfortunately, we weren't able to finish it out.
Yeah. But realistically, we just had – a rough offensive game. Again, you give them credit for playing good, hard-nosed defense. Alec Tabita going 2 for 11. Not his best game. Spencer Malloy didn't have his best game on the offensive end. Obviously Xavier Allen's been great to start the year. I like Terran Roy. He's a nice little player in that starting lineup who's been an impact player. I like Hod coming off the bench has been an impact player for us. Esposito has had a good game. So we have guys definitely who are contributing, and I would like to see a little bit more, especially in this game. We didn't have a lot of scoring coming off that bench.
No.
You got guys like McNeely, who we know are capable. Other guys we'd like to see come off the bench and provide more of an impact for the Golden Eagles. So That'll be something big going forward. Obviously, Justin Turner, providing more offense, I think would help us as well.
I think you're going to see him more in the rotation this year, by the way, Justin Turner. I think that's what we're going to see.
But again, the team has performed well. They did really well against the two CUNY schools they played in Lehman.
I was going to say York and Lehman. Lehman was one of the best teams in the CUNY last year and wiped the floor with them.
Yeah, so again, I think this game, goes more to the credit of a team like St. Lawrence, who's a good basketball team. They came back, they made it tough for us, and we're still a team learning each other. Still trying to play together. I know again,
a lot of new players this year. We've got the core 3 players plus McNeely, Turner, Tom Bell, but there's a lot of guys here on this team that people aren't used to. And with the exception of your old teammate who finds a way to be on this team every year, Mark Roberts Jr. You got to give him a lot of credit because Mark Roberts Jr., he's just found a way here. In St. Joe's history, he's got to be up there in all-time seasons played.
Yeah, he's definitely been on the team now for a while, but props to him for just being a good teammate.
He grinded. He was we spoke about him a lot with McSloy when he came on, Gordieso. He's really the guy that was the quintessential guy you need on a team. Give him a lot of credit. He fought and grinded. There's a lot of guys that we thought would have been big parts of this rotation over the years, and they didn't really equate or didn't turn out to be, but Mark Roberts Jr., guys hung in there.
Absolutely. So, I'm looking forward to it. We got guys, like a guy like A.K. Abasab has a ton of potential. I think, the more he kind of gets comfortable with the team, you're going to start seeing him putting up more points. Like I mentioned, Terran Roy, who's already had a good start to the season.
Big games he's already had, yep.
Esposito had a really good game early on this season. So these are guys who, again, are just kind of getting to know the team, starting to play together. I know it's been about, now a month or so of the season, but these are still early season games to kind of tune up for obviously our Skyline competition, which is going to, eventually begin. So I'm still excited for the group, and I just think, again, a tough loss, but I think that they've had a lot of success. Even in the exhibition games, you saw a lot of positives. In Hofstra and Stony Brook, again, the results.
Stony Brook game especially.
Yeah, they showed some promising signs. So that's really more important right now as we continue to go forward. But certainly our Golden Eagles, I think, are going to have a good season. We'll talk more about them in the Skyline and how they go there. Going forward here as the season goes on, I'm looking forward to a show where we talk with some of our friends and alumni from the school who are going to come on and speak to us and talk SJLI basketball. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to the high school season. Looking forward to basketball just in general going forward here. We got more events with the Long Island Nets. We got a great Level Up LI season. And speaking of that, before I was on the last show, my teams had won 2 championships. My ninth grade
on Instagram, yeah.
My 6th grade team, so I want to give them a big shout out. Congratulations for a great finish to the tournament season, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the 6th grade continue their great work and the 9th grade guys to continue their great work in the high schools at where they are respectively. So very excited for all that, Tom. Can't wait for more basketball and more football as well, and all the rest of in the world of sports. So thank you, Tom. Looking forward to next week.
Absolutely, and we can follow the Brute Force Brad Weiss on Twitter at BradWeiss20, also Instagram, BWeiss20, Coach Brad Weiss on Instagram, Bradley Weiss on Facebook, Snapchat, he's on there if that's still a thing, so make sure you follow him. Also follow our Golden Eagles on Instagram. Definitely make sure you check out the guys. The guys do a great job. They've always been big supporters of us all over the years. You really want to make sure that you support the Golden Eagles, the men's basketball team. You can do that here on Instagram at SJLI_MBball, SJLI_MBball. Also check them out on Twitter. Also, guys have a new poster, a new photo on Instagram. So you want to check that out. Also support the guys. And again, it's a really exciting team. It's also Coach Ull's first class that he's gotten to recruit a bit. So you have to give him the benefit of the doubt and starting because there's a lot of guys that we haven't seen. He's also bringing in a guy like a Terran Roy, who's a transfer, a senior. That's a big move on his part to get a veteran, kind of like what Highland did with Jason Brower a few years ago. So good move on that. A lot of good players. Basir Hoyt, our buddy Basir Hoyt, still on the team. So there's still guys here that are important. Before I move on to a few more closing thoughts, John Gonzalez, great show, guys. Good to see my arch rival, the Brute Force. Ron says, what's the topic? The topic is now we're getting ready to sign off. That's the topic here, Ron. But But before I get off the air, I want to also congratulate in addition to our SJLI Golden Eagles men's basketball team, I want to actually congratulate our Five Town Sound men's basketball team who got their first ever victory against an NCAA school. They defeated Mount St. Vincent. We know Mount St. Vincent very well, Brad. We cover them all the time in the Skyline Conference. Congratulations to our buddy Greg Drizel, Coach Drizel, who has a lot of ties to SJLI Long Island, especially Coach Mateko, the man that built SJLI Long Island. And what a win for the program. The guys are off to a fantastic start. I cannot wait to talk about that. The hard work at the Five Town Sound Athletics program pays off and some. Also want to congratulate also our women's basketball team with Corey Jakes off to a 3-0 start. I think that's the first time in like decades, if ever, that they've had that kind of start. And I was speaking with Coach Jakes off the air, and you know Coach Jakes very well, actually, through different places, and they are really primed and poised, I think, for a big year. The women's basketball team really keep an eye on. They're on break after tomorrow, and they're going to come and resume their season at the end of the month, beginning of December, and we're going to have on coverage not only our Five Town Sound men's basketball team, but our women's basketball team, and also the men's and women's soccer teams, because our men's soccer team is competing in the USCAAs. Obviously, the guys had a tough outcome today, but we're very confident that they'll stay alive here and win a game in the tournament in Pittsburgh. So keep an eye on Coach Facina and the boys. We wish them a lot of luck. You can follow Five Town Sound on Instagram at 5towns_sound. That's 5towns_sound. You can also follow them at FTC Men's Soccer, FTC Women's Basketball, FTC Women's Soccer, FTC Mass Com. Please make sure you support Five Towns. Five Towns, I can't say it enough, has really been one of our biggest champions throughout the years. I was speaking with our athletic director, Matt Gershio, a few days ago, and he was really pumped about what's going on at Five Towns. So we got a lot of coverage with the Golden Eagles, but Five Towns, the guys and gals are going to be back here with us in a few weeks. So stay tuned sometime in December. And Ron says, have a great night, boys. Go Packers. We'll see, Ron. Hope for your sake. But until then, we were here on sportswireradio.org originally to open up the show with Randy Dillon from the Hockey Fan Chat. We also had on Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter, and also from the Liftoff Jets, the Talking Rivals, Chris Bezea, and the man who is 27th all-time for now in rebounds in SJLI, men's basketball history and rebounds. Near the top of the list all-time in block shots. He is the coach of the JV Plainview team that is also in basketball. He is an assistant coach for the varsity team at Plainview JFK. He also coaches for the Level Up Basketball Organization, and he is with the Long Island Nets. He is the brute force Bradley Weiss. My name, which you may know by now, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway, it is your boy, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station, your voice of all wrestling, the Reverend Tom Bryson. I'll be back here again tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. with the first reel of XCW. Rob Slater, Justin Parsley. Until then, if you're on sportswireradio.org, you're going back to your regularly scheduled programming. I'm going to go rest my voice because I got to be back here less than 24 hours from now. So until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the #1 global radio station that is Sportswire Radio.